Chapter 77, Pounding Energy. Chapter 77, Pounding Energy. As the sun rose, Xia X and Yan returned to the misty pavilion. The two towering giant men were already waiting in the misty pavilion. Seeing that she had returned, they immediately rushed up, asking urgently, "Mistress, are you hurt?" Shaking her head, Xia X and Yan answered, "I'm fine. The Yang family's nutrition pill is truly a unique elixir of the endless sea. I am all right now." The misty pavilion covered a large area, and there was around a dozen different towers. Although a few had collapsed this time, it still didn't affect the normal operations of the misty pavilion. Entering into the highest treasure tower, Xia X and Yan went to level 9 attic. Crow bent down and spoke while gritting his teeth. "How dare that Bai Mingshang hurt you? Mistress, what do you want to do with the Bai Ming family next?" "We don't have to take care of the Bai Ming family right now." That X and Yan looked indifferent. "I came here this time for the treasure map to the Gate of Heaven. The Bai Ming family isn't my main motive. Bai Mingshang is in the Sky Realm, and I am only in the Disaster Realm. Even if I use my reincarnation martial spirit, I can barely put up a fight against him. After this, if Bai Mingshang is sensible enough, he won't mess with the misty pavilion. If not, then once the Shura King Xiaohan gets here, I will make Bai Mingshang pay for what he's done. Mistress, the Sky Realm warrior that came this time, shouldn't he be from the Mo family? If the Mo family had a Sky Realm master, they wouldn't have been bullied by the Shur family." Crow hesitated and said weakly, "I know it's not someone from the Mo family." Unexpectedly, Xia X and Yan actually nodded and agreed to Crow's judgment. "Then, mistress, why would you attack the Mo family?" Crow asked. His face was full of confusion. "If I didn't attack the Mo family, how would we be able to cooperate with the people that actually have the treasure map?" Xia X and Yan lightly chuckled. "We had to have a scapegoat, otherwise if the Misty Pavilion kept silent after such a big event, won't the others think that the Misty Pavilion is easy to bully? So, mistress, you wanted to distract people's attention." Crow's eyes brightened, and he immediately knew her true motive. "Yes, just let everyone keep their eyes on the Mo family. Then we can easily work with the other side to secretly explore the Gate of Heaven. When Tianyin City becomes chaotic, we can get things done faster." Xia X and Yan nodded and said indifferently, "That Sky Realm master that came had a strange martial spirit that could form mysterious mists. Although he didn't really use his martial spirit, I was able to glimpse its traits. Do you know any Sky Realm masters with a martial spirit like that?" "Qi Xiao." Crow didn't hesitate for a moment, and he immediately answered, "Qi Xiao is the Sky Realm master of the Cloud Mountain, and he's close with the Zhuo family. Could it have possibly been the Zhuo family that got involved this time? Impossible, unless that half of the fragment map is actually in the Zhuo family's hands. It has to be." Xia X and Yan groaned. Then she suddenly said, "There's no time to wait. I will make a visit to the Zhuo family myself, so that we can get this done as soon as possible in case any mishaps occur." "Mistress, should I go?" "No, it's all right. That Qi Xiao knows he can't take me. The Zhuo family won't cause me any trouble." Xia X and Yan only stayed for a quarter of an hour. Once she was clear on who was the intruder, she immediately took off alone. The Zhuo family, Zhuo Su and Qi Xiao, were still discussing in the secret room. Knock, knock. There was suddenly a light knocking sound that came from the walls of the secret room. Zhuo Su froze. He leaned into one of the bamboo tubes on the wall and asked, "What is it?" "There's a woman with a bamboo hat that came from the Misty Pavilion. She says she wants to see the head of the family." "It's that girl," Qi Xiao exclaimed. Zhuo Su's expression shifted. He slowly paced in the secret room, and after a long while he finally said with a frown, "Could it be that the Misty Pavilion already knows it was us? That can't be right. If they really knew it was us, why would they attack the Mo family? How strange. You should go out and meet her. I'll stay here." Qi Shao hesitated, then said, "Let's see what she wants." "All right." In the guest room of the Zhuo family, Zhuo Su sat there calmly. He looked at Xia Xanyan, who was wearing a bamboo hat, and smiled. "How may I address you, miss?" Xia Xanyan. "Well, Miss Xia, may I ask for what reason did you come to our family? I don't think the Zhuo family has had any affairs with the Misty Pavilion lately. Where's Qi Shao?" Xia Xanyan shook her head and casually said. Zhuo Su's expression slightly changed, but he quickly returned to calmness. He asked in confusion, "Miss Xia, for what reason did you ask? Qi Shao has always been cultivating in the Cloud Mountain. Do you know him?" "Of course. We fought just yesterday. He left quite a deep impression." Xia Xanyan sat there naturally and slowly sipped on her tea. Zhuo Su's expression kept changing, his smile a little forced. "Miss Xia, could you have been mistaken? The person that attacked the Misty Pavilion yesterday, wasn't he from the Mo family?" "Master Zhuo, I didn't come here today to settle the accounts with you." Xia Xanyan's eyes were a little impatient. "On the contrary, I came to sincerely ask you to cooperate." Then Xia Xanyan pulled out other half of the dark yellow treasure map and directly placed it on the table between her and Zhuo Su. She spoke lightly. "Half of the treasure map is right here. Head of the Zhuo family, if you're straightforward enough, then let's just cut to the chase. We can immediately combine the two pieces of the map, and once we know where the Gate of Heaven is at, we can start moving immediately. Master Zhuo, don't waste everyone's time. Right now, everyone has their eyes on the Mo family. We can take the opportunity to explore the Gate of Heaven. How's that, Master Zhuo?" Xia Xanyan was a little aggressive. She didn't give a damn about the head of the family, Zhuo Su. Her motives were clear. She came for the other half of the treasure map. Zhuo Su was a little unsure as to what Xia Xanyan's motives were. He didn't know if she really wanted to cooperate, or if she was just trying to feel them out using her words, so that she could take steps to go against the Zhuo family. But since Xia Xanyan had the capability of a Sky Realm warrior, Zhuo Su couldn't casually speak out. His mind flashed, racing in thought. "Master Zhuo, I don't like to linger on things, and I also don't like putting in personal affairs when dealing with business. Qi Shao was sensible enough. He knew when to retreat after realizing that I was in the Sky Realm. None of us got hurt, so there's no grudges in this. I came only for the treasure map. I have no intention to cause trouble. Is that clear?" Xia Xanyan's pretty brows furrowed. She stared at Zhuo Su coldly and became more and more impatient. Zhuo Su's expression continuously changed as he thought for a long moment. He faintly had the idea that Xia Xanyan didn't come to interrogate them. Groaning, he gritted his teeth and said, "The other half of the map is not in my hands." "Then whose hands is it in?" Xia Xanyan's eyes brightened. "It's on Shi Jian." "Then I have nothing to discuss with you. I will go find Shi Jian." Xia Xanyan took the half piece of the map from the table. She stood up and said, "Master Zhuo, sorry to bother you, I will be leaving now." "I will go with you." Zhuo Su immediately stood up, thinking, such a materialistic girl. Changing your attitude right after hearing I don't have the map. You sure are the owner of the Misty Pavilion, a typical city merchant. Does it still have anything to do with you? Xia Xanyan was surprised. Zhuo Su's expression was starting to darken. He snorted, then said, "Shi Jian and I are in this together. Our family has a part in exploring the Gate of Heaven too. Don't you think it still has something to do with me?" "Oh, then we can go together," Xia Xanyan said casually. "Wait up, let me call someone else along." Zhuo Su forced a smile at Zhuo Shi and said awkwardly, "Qi Zhao's going too? You said you didn't mind, right?" "No, I don't mind. With Qi Shao coming along, it will be safer." The Shi family on the 3rd level of Shi Yan's personal stone tower. Shi Yan sat on the floor with crossed legs. His expression was serious. He held in his breath and concentrated. He was able to clearly feel the natural energies scattered in the air. Calming his mind, Shuryan shut his eyes tightly and started circulating the profound qi in his body. After 7 continuous cycles of circulation, the expression on his face suddenly froze. In his body, rich, concentrated, profound qi flowed down his left arm like a river rushing towards its banks. Like wild horses on the loose, the profound qi fiercely surged into his left arm. His left arm shook lightly, and traces of sweat dripped down his face. Roar! Shuryan suddenly shouted out. The masses of profound qi fiercely rushed into his left arm, and crazily gushed straight all the way to his ring finger. Bzz, bzz, bzz. The profound qi became like a sword aura, suddenly shooting out from his ring finger. The fierce, profound qi blazed with a bright white light, and repeatedly slammed into the barrier in the blood vein ring. Shuryan's expression was ferocious. His face was glowing in a strange red light, his mind intensely focused. Pooh! A crisp sound suddenly came from the blood vein ring. All of a sudden, the blood vein ring shone with a bright red light. The strange radiance was like a blazing sun, illuminating the entire 3rd floor of the stone tower. A strange pulse spread out everywhere from the center of the stone tower. Chapter 78. Inheritance of the War Devil. Chapter 78. Inheritance of the War Devil. Shuryan suddenly entered a strange space. Endless gray clouds were floating in the dimly lit sky like an empty ocean, vast and boundless. It was a strange space, immeasurably vast. In this space, a hideous-looking giant was standing with his feet standing on the ground and his head reaching the sky. He was thousands of miles tall and seemed to have been standing there for thousands of billions of years. An ancient aura suddenly exploded out from this extremely huge giant. Immediately, countless bright flames exploded from the meridians all over his body. His meridians were like numerous stars in the sky that moved in their own orbits. Every single meridian possessed the power to ruin the world, and every meridian was a small world itself, from which came the cries of all sorts of creatures. In that boundless space there were piles and piles of bones, and the ground had turned crimson due to all the blood. Some piles of bones were as high as a mountain. No one knew where they came from. Looking at the piles of bones, many of them were of some odd-looking creatures. Some looked to be having 3 heads and 6 arms. Some looked like a divine dragon. Some had 3 sockets for eyes. Some looked like marine animals, and so forth. They were all prostrated on the ground, as if bowing towards a giant, worshipping it as if it was the sole true God. All of a sudden, a peculiar light flashed across the hideous ancient god's pupils. His right pupil was shining brightly as the sun, as if bringing every creature light and life, giving this world hope. On the contrary, his left pupil was as dark as a black hole, containing endless darkness which symbolized negative actions like maiming, killing, death, insanity, and hatred. From his left pupil, one could see the darkest side of humanity. One eye looked alive while the other looked deadly. Standing between the sky and the earth, that ancient god seemed to be waiting for something. All of a sudden, that pair of eyes noticed Shuryan. A mysterious power immediately reached Shuryan's mind and connected the two of them together. In that strange space came the abrupt and terrifying howls of the ancient god. Numerous odd light symbols flew out from his eyes and invaded into Shuryan's spiritual body, making every one of his meridians shine as bright as a star. Severe pain exploded in each of his meridians, and as Shuryan's head received a splitting pain, he suddenly woke up. He was still on the 3rd floor of the stone house. The blood vein ring was on the ring finger of his left hand, and the odd red light was slowly becoming dimmer. He sat there with a numb head. If someone came at that time, he would find that deep in his pupils there were odd light spots which looked like small symbols dancing. Xia Xianyan, Qi Xiao, and Zhuasu were walking together in the backyard of the Shi family. The three were astonished at the same time, as they looked at the stone building 500 meters away with a shocked expression on their faces. There is some peculiar energy is rippling over there, which seems very old and coming from the times of great antiquity. Xia Xianyan said softly, and her eyes behind her veil were full of surprise. This ancient energy should not exist here right now. Qi Xiao also looked weird as he stared at that stone building with extreme focus. I don't know why, but I feel that my martial spirit was slightly triggered by that energy. Weird, it's really weird. What kind of energy is able to resonate with martial spirits? Xia Xianyan shook her head, thought for a while, and asked, "So a family head, Shi Jian lives in that stone building, right?" "Well, it seems I have underestimated him. He is unbelievable." "No, absolutely no." Zhuasu couldn't help but shake his head and said in a weird tone, "That stone building is now used by Shi Jian's grandson, Shi Yan. He likes studying ancient relics. He is a rather extraordinary kid." Shi Yan, Xia Xianyan repeated that name in her mind, secretly with some astonishment crossing her eyes, and she nodded. "Let's visit the family head." Okay. Inside the secret room, Shi Jian and Shi Tai, who were busy discussing how to deal with the Mo family, noticed the strange energy fluctuations. Shi Jian's face changed slightly as he shouted in astonishment, "That strange energy came from Shi Yan's building." The stir from Shi Yan's stone building was sensed by all the warriors who were at high realms. After a terrifying cry, Shi Jian pushed open the stone door of the secret room and rushed out. Shi Tai chased behind him in a hurry. They exited the secret room and dashed directly towards Shi Yan's stone building. However, before they got to Shi Yan's stone building, they saw Zhuasu, Qi Xiao, and Xia Xianyan. Shi Jian was a little astonished, as his expression was rather unusual. He paused for a bit and asked from afar, "Brother Zhua, why so early?" He recognized Xia Xianyan at once and was a little nervous. Like Zhuasu, he had a guilty conscience, guessing Xia Xianyan came to make a punitive expedition against him. "Brother, let's find a quiet place and have a talk." Zhuasu smiled bitterly and pointed at Xia Xianyan to introduce. "This is the hidden master of the Misty Pavilion, Miss Xia Xianyan. She has something important to discuss with you." Shi Jian was a little surprised. After a short hesitation, he gave up the idea of visiting Shi Yan in his stone house and nodded, "Follow me." Before long, Shi Jian and Shi Tai showed the three guests to the rock room. Having seated himself in the rock room, Zhuasu coughed and spilled Xia Xianyan's intention. Cooperation. Shi Jian got relieved. After a short thought, he nodded with a smile. "That is most welcome. The position of the gate of heaven would only be shown by a complete map, and we, the Shi family, never intended to take everything." "Miss Xia, you are so generous. A great woman." Xianyan was straightforward as she took out the half map out and spread it on the stone ground, then said softly, "Shi family head, take out your half." Shi Jian looked to Zhuasu. After Zhuasu nodded, he took out the other half of the map and put it on the ground to match the first half. A bunch of yellow lights suddenly blazed at the joining of the two halves. That yellow light seemed to have some stickiness, as it connected the two halves into a perfectly complete map. The bright yellow light glowed from the complete treasure map. On that yellow map, lines were twisting and changing like living earthworms, the pattern on it shifting completely. It slowly became clear. Soon, there formed a vivid image of a valley. Strange yin qi covered that valley, out of which there were numerous green swamps. Even the bubbles in them could be seen clearly. Shi Jian, Shi Tai, Zhuasu, and Qi Xiao were all taken by surprise. Only Xia Xianyan looked calm, as she said naturally, "Friends, I'm not familiar with this area. Although the map is clear, I don't know which place is which." Do you have any idea? The dead swamp. Yin Valley. Qi Zhao's expression changed quickly. After a long while, he announced firmly, "That's it. It is absolutely Yin Valley, which is the most mysterious part of the dead swamp, where the Yin Qi is most dense and many Yin treasures are produced." "Good, if you are sure about it." Xia Xinyan nodded. "If it's certain, we can begin to prepare to travel to Yin Valley. It should not be delayed. I will arrange it back in the Misty Pavilion and set off soon." "Isn't the Yin Valley home to Nine-Headed Sky Snake?" Zuosu took a deep breath and asked Qi Xiao beside him. Shi Jian's expression changed. Qi Xiao nodded slowly. "Yes. The Nine-Headed Sky Snake lives in the Yin Valley. It seems that this journey won't go peacefully." "Nine-Headed Sky Snake?" Xia Xinyan was quite calm. "By the sounds of it, is it a high realm demon beast?" "A level 7 demon beast." Qi Xiao said. Xia Xinyan furrowed her brows and nodded. "Well, it might be tough. But anyway, a level 7 demon beast equals a sky realm warrior. We can beat it together. The Nine-Headed Sky Snake is a level 7 demon beast. But it is the most powerful one among all level 7 demon beasts. It has 9 heads which can all think separately, and it is very aggressive. I'd rather fight with 3 normal level 7 demon beasts than him. I will go back to the Cloudy Mountain first and get some weapons in case something unusual happens." Qi Xiao sighed. "Keep the treasure map with you. Let's meet at the entrance of the dead swamp in a month." Xia Xinyan was quite decisive as she stood up and said calmly, "I hope you will be on time." "I don't have so much time to waste." Then Xia Xinyan walked out with light steps. "Brother, what to do now?" Zuosu smiled bitterly. "Tianyin City is now in total chaos. Plus the Shi and Mo families are going through a crucial phase. Will you still take some time to handle this?" "Hardly." Shi Jian shook his head and thought for a while. "Since Qi Xiao is going there, my presence is not that important. I will send some other guy." Shi Yan likes goofing around. Would you like him to go with you?" Shi Jian stared at Qi Xiao. Qi Xiao nodded softly. "I can't leave Tianyin City right now, or Bai Mingshang would suspect me. I will send Shi Yan with you and 2 other warriors. We have to keep it a secret. Don't let too many people get involved." Zuosu deliberated for a while and agreed with Shi Jian. "Shi family head, I need to go back to Cloudy Mountain first. I will get to the dead swamp in a month's time. Your people don't need to go with me for now. Let them go with Shi Yan to the dead swamp. I can go there faster alone." Qi Xiao said, "Okay. I will send Han Feng to follow that bastard Shi Yan and Zuoshi when they leave Tianyin City secretly. 1 month, that would be fine." Shi Jian nodded and handed that treasure map to Qi Xiao and said earnestly, "Qi Xiao, please do me a favor to take care of Shi Yan. I want him to be safe." "No worries." Qi Xiao didn't refuse, and put that treasure map away naturally. On the 3rd floor of that stone building, the blood vein ring on his ring finger had returned to normal, but Shi Yan was still sitting in a trance. A sudden glimmer flashed through his eyes. A long time later, Shi Yan gradually came back to himself and his eyes sparkled. He lowered his head and mumbled, "Inheritance of the War Devil, the martial skill that operates my mysterious martial spirit. Too magical." Chapter 79, The Seal of Life and Death. Chapter 79, The Seal of Life and Death. In the stone tower, Shi Yan's expression was full of surprise. His mind clicked, and he continued to violently pour all of his profound qi into the blood vein ring. However, a short time later he encountered a new barrier in the ring. He was out of sorts for a second, and finally came to the conclusion that the blood vein ring was definitely a strange treasure. Inside were layers and layers of barriers, and behind every single barrier was new things to be found. The first time he pounded at the blood vein ring, he obtained the cultivation method 4. This time he got the blood vein ring was like a patient mentor who will set a barrier at every special stage, and you could only peek into its secrets if you can break that barrier. The complex ancient was clearly imprinted deep in his mind. Just like the skill, once he focused on the mnemonics would appear in his mind. Sure, Yen couldn't immediately and completely understand the mnemonics of but just from a glance, he could understand that there was an extraordinary martial skill that could utilize his mysterious martial spirit. Using the circulation method of he was able to stir the negative energy in all of his meridians. Those negative energies would flow towards his left arm in a special pattern, forming A with extremely negative characteristics. They also had secret methods to stir the profound qi in the whole body, making it flow into the right arm and form another extraordinary thing called the left hand is and the right hand is the. When using this skill in battle, the two seals can be merged into one, forming the true. The power of the depended on the density of the negative energies in the body and the amount of profound qi. Its strongest power would be released when forming a total of 49 seals. 7 seals would be marked as the first sky. As the realm and martial skill of a warrior progressed, the number of seals forming would increase when using. Every time one broke through to another sky, the number and size of the seals formed would multiply. According to the mnemonics of once you reaching the 7th sky, 49 seals would instantly form and release an earth-crushing power. And if these 49 seals were fused together, it would emit an invincible strength, easily able to crush the highest mountains. However, the mnemonics on them were quite hard to understand and would take a while to completely digest. Before he could completely figure out the deep meanings of the ancient texts, Shi Yan didn't dare to rashly cultivate He knew from learning that any secret martial skills coming from the blood vein ring weren't to be underestimated. After thinking for a while, Shi Yan decided to spend his time trying to understand the mnemonics about the seal. Shi Yan slowly stood up. He furrowed his brows and moved to the window, gazing across at the Shi family's artificial lake. A beautiful figure suddenly appeared into his view. A strange light flashed in Shi Yan's eyes. There was a surprise on his face, and he murmured quietly, "Why has she come to the Shi family?" Far away by the lake, Xia Xianyan was wearing a veil on her face, looking every bit the peerless beauty. She was being led by Han Feng to the back door of the secret room of the Shi family. Shi Yan had a strong impression of Xia Xianyan, the mysterious woman. Just by gazing from far away, he immediately recognized her, and secretly he was surprised. Led by Han Feng, Xia Xianyan quickly went into the garden behind the lake and disappeared into the secret room. Soon, Qi Shao and Zhuasu also quietly followed and disappeared through the same door into the Shi family's secret room. After a while, Shi Jian finally walked out of the stone room. His eyes swept to the Shi Yan stone tower and immediately started walking towards it. Shi Yan's mind flicked. He silently closed the windows and quietly sat down on the 3rd floor of the stone tower, as if he had been deeply immersed in cultivating. "Kid, what was that just a moment ago?" Shi Jian quickly appeared on the 3rd floor of Shi Yan's tower. As soon as he came in, he immediately glared at Shi Yan and asked, "What was what?" Shi Jian opened his eyes, looking confused. "Half an hour ago, there was a strange fluctuation coming from this place. Did you make that happen? You little brat better explain to me." "I don't know. I was just quietly cultivating. I just reached the human realm, and I'm still trying to get familiar with the circulation pattern of the natural energies. Maybe I just accidentally tuned into the natural patterns and caused a resonance of the natural energies." Shi Yan smiled, full of bullshit. Shi Jian furrowed his brows, stared at Shi Yan for a second, then finally sneered. "You little brat, hiding a bunch of secrets, huh? I couldn't care less. Just don't act too recklessly and screw yourself over." As the head of the family, Shi Jian could immediately see he wasn't speaking the truth. But Shi Jian didn't want to intervene on everything. Seeing that Shi Yan was fine, Shi Jian just allowed him to keep bullshitting. After pondering for a second, Shi Jian told him about the issue that Xia Xanyan, Zhuo Su, and Qi Shao came to talk about. Then he finally said, "This time, I am going to let you, Han Feng and Kulong, go together. We are only investigating the location of the Gate of Heaven this time, to get to understand the situation. You only need to follow along and get some experience. Remember, don't act rashly. If anything happens, just let Qi Shao and that Xia girl handle it. These two both have the Sky Realm combat abilities. Even if they can't take on the 9-headed Sky Snake, they could at least keep you guys safe." Shi Yan was surprised. He didn't expect Xia Xanyan to be so generous. Not only did she not blame Qi Shao for the sneak attack, she also stepped on the Mo family in order to divert everyone's attention. In the end, she forgave what had happened and took the initiative to lend her hand. This woman was something. Shi Yan's eyes glimmered, secretly surprised. He frowned, thought for a moment, and said, "Don't worry, I also care about my life a lot. I don't want to lose it. My role is just to fill up a spot in the exploration of Gate of Heaven. I won't put my life on the line for this." "Okay, prepare yourself. Tonight at midnight, you, Han Feng, and Kulong will secretly set off and meet up with Zhuo Shi at the north entrance of Tianyin City. Remember, you have to be careful. The Gate of Heaven is important, but you are more important to the Shi family. You have to come back safely. Understood?" The Baiming family. Baiming Shang sat at the 7th level of the ice pavilion, his body overflowing with freezing energy. There was even a layer of frost covering his body. Just looking at him, Baiming Shang looked like an ice sculpture, appearing very strange. Baiming Su, Yin Kuei, and Jiao Shan were standing aside, their expressions serious. Other than them, there was also Baiming Su's father, Baiming Xie. Baiming Xie was at Earth Realm, 3rd Sky. He always took care of affairs outside of Tianyin City, but after hearing about the chaos happening in Tianyin City, he rushed here from Beiluo City overnight. After Baiming Shang fought with Xia Xanyan, he immediately entered the ice pavilion and hadn't come out since. The masters in the Baiming family were worried about Baiming Shang. They strictly guarded the ice pavilion and had been on the lookout from day to night, afraid that mishaps might happen in this crucial moment. After a very long time, the frost on Baiming Shang's body gradually seeped into his body. "Father! Grandpa!" Baiming Xie and Baiming Su both called out. Baiming Shang slowly opened his eyes and breathed out a cloud of white frost. He said, "That girl's martial spirit is strange. She could actually use her power from her last life and instantly step into the Sky Realm. The Endless Sea is truly a holy place for thousands of warriors, and only from that place could such a frightening martial spirit exist." "Father, are you all right?" Baiming Xie asked worriedly. Shaking his head, Baiming Shang said, "Did you find that girl?" "She mysteriously disappeared last night. We searched all night, but couldn't find any trace of her." Baiming Xie was slightly nervous. He hesitated, and then said, "But early this morning, she returned to the Misty Pavilion. Our spies say that she only stayed in the Misty Pavilion for a short moment, then she left alone. We don't know where she went. Last night her injuries were worse than mine. We couldn't find her last night, and now we have missed the best chance." Baiming Shang sighed, then said, "She dared to appear this morning. That means her injuries have almost recovered. We don't have a chance to take her anymore. Pass on my orders. Don't move on the Misty Pavilion." "Understood." Baiming Xie nodded, but he also felt a little regretful. Tianyin City is full of our spies. I wonder where the hell she hid last night. If we could have found her, then we could have killed her. We missed our chance, so we can't do anything about it. Not everything's going to go our way. Baiming Shang got over the matter. He pondered, and then said, "Keep an eye on all 4 city gates. Release all the cloud eagles in the family. If any major figures of the other 4 families are getting in or out of the city, inform me immediately. Father, you're saying Ding Yan is definitely dead. Someone must have gotten that half of the fragmented map, or else there's no reason why someone cannot wait to seize that other half of the fragmented map from the Misty Pavilion. Bai Mingshang sneered and said the Mo family lost miserably this time. If they had a Sky Realm Master to back them up with Mo Tuo's temperament, he wouldn't have just let this slide. We only need to wait 2 days. If the Mo family doesn't make any major actions in 2 days, we can eliminate them from the possibilities. Who could it be? Whichever family couldn't hold it in anymore and leaves the city first. Bai Mingshang scowled and said, that girl left the Misty Pavilion early in the morning. She definitely must have figured out something. Maybe the 2 map pieces have already been put together by now. Keep an eye on the Misty Pavilion too. We can ignore the fight between the Mo and Sher families for now. Spread out all our spies. In 3 days, if any direct descendants of the 3 families leave the city, I need to receive the news immediately. Understood. Chapter 80 Shadowing. Chapter 80 Shadowing. That night, at the north gate of Tianyan City, Shi Yan, Han Feng, and Ku Long secretly left the city from the gate. A 4-horses carriage was waiting in the deserted tombs outside the north gate. An old man was standing beside the carriage and staring at the starry sky in a daze. Whisperings could be heard from the carriage. The carriage was surrounded by many high and low tombs, and the green wildfire beside them was giving out a very gloomy atmosphere in the dark night. It's the Zhua families. Ku Long got to one unmarked burial mounds and remarked after taking a glimpse from afar. Shi Yan nodded and said indifferently, it seems we are late anyway. The old man overheard their talk, and as he withdrew his eyes and looked in their direction, he raised the whip in his hand. Receiving his signal, the 3, including Shi Yan, walked over. Miss, people from the Shi family have arrived. The old man reported to that carriage at a cautious, low voice. About time they got here. Zhua Shi's voice came from the carriage. An elegant and graceful woman came out of the carriage quietly, glanced at Shi Yan, and said to Zhua Shi with a big smile, that kid is here. Aunt Lien. Zhua Shi cried with a sweet, girlish, and angry voice. I told you there is nothing between us. Please stop teasing me. Okay. That woman giggled and waved at Shi Yan standing beside the carriage. As Shi Yan came near, she said, Young Master Yan, you 3 didn't take a carriage. It will be arranged for us when we get to the Shuelai city in the north. Sure, Yan looked indifferent. He took a glimpse at the woman and complimented her secretly, then walked to the carriage at a leisurely pace and put a huge package into it. Xiao Shi, this is your dragon turtle armor. My grandpa asked me to return it to you. Okay. Zhua Shi replied and whispered, You ungrateful guy. You wasted our goodwill. Shi Yan withdrew his smile. You had told me that whoever uses the dragon turtle armor is a turtle. I don't want to be a turtle. Ha! Sitting in the carriage, Zhua Shi couldn't help but giggle. You guys have really good memory, huh? I had said that to infuriate my grandpa so that you could take the armor. You helped me unlock the shell and get me the treasure. Of course you deserve the dragon turtle armor. The martial spirit of Shi family is more than enough for defending. I don't need that armor. Sure, Yan shook his head. Miss, shall we go now? The warrior from the Zhua family got on the carriage, waved his whip, and asked softly, Yes, let's go. Wait, please let me introduce first. This is Chu Ping, first sky of the Nirvana realm. I'm Wu Yunlian. That graceful woman elegantly smiled and said to Han Feng, I know Brother Han, and this is? She looked to Kulong. Kulong, first sky of the Nirvana realm. Kulong introduced himself in a friendly manner as he scratched his head. I have been staying out of the town and just came back for the martial competition. Ha! We haven't had a chance to meet. So you are Brother Kulong. Wu Yunlian beamed and nodded. It's an honor for me to work with Brother Han and Brother Kulong. Hope we can get to know each other well. You are too modest, Han Feng and Kulong said together. This woman looked dignified and was at the first sky of the Nirvana realm. She was a warrior from the Cloud Mountain. Since she was once helped by Qi Xiao, she attached herself to the Zhuo family at Qi Xiao's introduction, and was rather cared for by Zhuo Su and became an intimate friend to Zhuo Shi. Han Feng and Kulong knew she was someone of status, so they were both polite to her. Then let's start our journey. Shi Yan looked up at the sky, but suddenly furrowed his brows as he pointed at a dark spot in the sky. What's that? Chu Ping, Han Feng, Kulong, and Wu Yunlian raised their heads together. A cloud eagle. Han Feng's expression changed as he yelled, It's the Baiming families. A cloud eagle has perfect eyesight and can see people on the ground clearly. The Baiming family is tailing us. Kulong was a bit confused. They knew we were getting out of the town. I'm not sure. Chu Ping was a little surprised as well. He gazed at the departing eagle and said, Maybe it's on the way back the Baiming family from somewhere else and happened to be here. It may not be trailing us specially. We have to be cautious anyway. Wu Yunlian sighed softly. We need to be quick. Even if the Baiming family is shadowing us, they can't find us easily if we are cautious enough. Okay. Later that night, in the ice room of the Baiming family. Father! News came that people from the Shi and Zhuo families secretly left from the North Gate. The Shi family have sent Han Feng, Kulong, and Shi Yan, and the Zhuo family have sent Chu Ping, Wu Yunlian, and one other in a carriage. It must be Miss Zhuo Shi. Bai Mingqi hurried back to the ice room and told the latest news after a bow. Bai Mingsu was in the ice room too. He was training with the aid of the freezing air in the ice room. Hearing upon the news, he opened his eyes and cried out, It is the Shi family and the Zhuo family. Bai Mingshang looked gloomy as he sat there still, with cold air diffusing in his eyes. After a long time, Bai Mingshang said, The other half of the treasure map must be in their hands. It must be Qi Xiao who grabbed the map from the Misty Pavilion. That girl in the Misty Pavilion is too wicked, and she used Mo Tu'a to distract us. We would have been cheated if we weren't cautious enough to let the cloud eagle shadow them. Father, what should we do now? I will go after them with Su, to see where they are heading for. Su is going too. It is not peaceful in the Tianyin city recently. I will take Yin Kuei and Jiu Shan with me this time. It's not safe to leave Su alone in the town. Bai Mingshang ordered, You stay at home and tell people that I'm cultivating in seclusion. Don't stir any suspicion. Got it. Grandpa, the Zhuo and Shi families must have come to a certain agreement with the Misty Pavilion. If Qi Xiao allied with that woman, will you be in danger when in a battle with them? Bai Mingsu took a breath and said indifferently, I've made some preparations. His eyes sparkled. The Dark Master from the Dark World sent a message days ago that he wants Mu Yu Dai. I haven't replied yet. Bai Mingshang thought for a while and looked at Bai Mingsu. He is at the Sky Realm. It would be fine with his help. Qi Xiao and that girl can hardly compete with us. They could only choose to cooperate with us to explore the Gate of Heaven. The Dark Master from the Dark World. Bai Mingsu was shocked but also sad. He whispered after a long while, Grandpa, what on earth do you mean? Mu Yu Dai's martial spirit is great, but it's useless for us. Rather, that Dialin may be able to combine with our ice martial spirit. Staring at him, Bai Mingshang shouted, Merely a woman. You can't even let it go? Bai Mingsu frowned and shook his head. No, it's just too unexpected. I will give up anything for the Bai Ming family. Good. You are going to take over the whole family. Don't be so emotional. Bai Mingshang nodded with satisfaction and comforted. Don't worry, child. That Dark Master only wants to use that girl to train his martial spirit. He won't care if she is a virgin or not. I will let you two be together for 3 days before I hand her to the Dark Master. Thank you, Grandpa. Bai Ming-su beamed. For this time, take Muyu Dai and Dialin with you. Later, I will hand Muyu Dai over to the Dark Master without letting Dialin know. Bai Ming-shang said. Grandson understands. Bai Ming-su walked out of the ice room, irrespective of the deep night, and he headed for the island in the lake directly. Muyu Dai and Dialin weren't asleep, but kept training quietly. Seeing that Bai Ming-su had arrived, the two girls dressed to welcome him. Bai Ming-su beamed. Get prepared, we need to be out of town before dawn. What's up? Muyu Dai was surprised. The map to the Gate of Heaven is now complete. Someone has already set off for the exploration, so we are to follow them secretly. Bai Ming-su said earnestly to Muyu Dai, Shao Dai, there are many treasures in the Gate of Heaven, and my grandpa thinks you and Dialin should try your luck. Maybe you will harvest a lot from it. It's a once-in-a-100-year chance. Don't miss it. Muyu Dai and Dialin's eyes lit up at the same moment. Many thanks, young master So. Muyu Dai bowed, with dimple smile on her pretty small face. I won't forget your favor if I harvest something from the Gate of Heaven. What are you talking about? Bai Ming-su pretended to be angry. Do we need that? Well, I'm sorry. I will go get prepared. Muyu Dai said with a big smile. Okay, I will wait for you outside. Be quick. Remember, don't expose yourselves. Let's go quietly. Bai Ming-su reminded and left the lake with a satisfied smile. Shao Dai, it came to me suddenly that Dialin's face dimmed. The treasure map is complete, which means Ding Yan was found by them. According to their way of acting, I'm afraid he was already. Upon hearing that, Muyu Dai realized it as well. Her expression changed with sorrow. However, she was very relieved when she came to the thought that she may get lots of treasure in the Gate of Heaven. Don't worry, he will be fine. They only wanted the map, not his life. Sister Lan, we have to grab this opportunity. Maybe we can get a good fortune from it, and our revenge. Muyu Dai said ambitiously, clenching her fists. Sai, I hope he is fine. Dialin sighed with profound resignation. Stop thinking about him. We have to have a good plan to take the most advantage from it. Muyu Dai was quite excited. She already pictured the dark world smashed by her in the near future, as her enemies fallen, covered in blood. She was rather very satisfied every time she came up with that scene. She was totally intoxicated by hatred. Chapter 81, Obsession. Chapter 81, Obsession. In the silence of the night, the two carriages slowly left Shualai City, one after another. Shualai City was last city on the way to the Dead Swamp. Between the Dead Swamp and Shualai City was a forest of medium-sized trees, through which a narrow path had been cleared for use by mercenaries and traders. On the carriage in front, Chu Ping was waving his whip in a relaxed manner. Zhu Shi and Wu Yunlian's soft giggles could be heard from the carriage every now and then. They seemed to be happily chatting all the way. In the carriage behind them, Han Feng and Ku Long were sitting outside, occasionally uttering some words. Most of the time, they were both on alert and kept an eye on the surroundings. Shi Yan was completely silent in his carriage. For the past dozens of days, apart from meals, Shi Yan hardly got out of the carriage. Every time he got out of the carriage, he wore a tired face with furrowed brows, seeming to be bothered about something. Late at night, the two carriages had stopped beside a brook in the forest. Zhuo Shi and Wu Yunlian got off the carriage and walked to the brook, using the water to rinse their faces. Before long, the two came back with some water to find that it was completely silent inside the other carriage. What is that guy doing? Wu Yunlian looked at the carriage in confusion, her expression clearly showing bewilderment. I have hardly seen him get out of the carriage. Apart from those times when he got down and wolfed down his food, he has been staying in the carriage all day. And every time he comes out, he is always deep in thought, showing such a miserable face. What a weird kid. He has always been a weirdo. Zwa sure nodded in acknowledgement. He has such strange hobbies like studying historic relics and ancient languages. No one knows what happens in his brain. Wu Yunlian laughed alluringly. Xiaoshe, this guy is really different. Usually such boys would chase you around all day long and wouldn't go away even when you tried to drive them off. But this one has never looked at you in these 10 days. He seems unwilling to come out of the carriage. Really strange. Leave him alone. He is a weirdo. Zhuo was really surprised by Wu Yunlian's opinion and realized she was right. Sure, Yan had never looked at her while they were on the road. Though not a self-centered girl, Zhuo knew that she was pretty, and the attitude Yan showed towards her was very different from other boys' attitudes. Yan was at his romantic age. But why was he so indifferent towards women? Every woman cared about such things, including Zhuo. Apart from some confusion, she was also a little angry. Get me some water. Yan's indifferent voice came from the carriage. Kulong was stunned as he looked to Han Feng and replied, Feng, do you still have some water? Han Feng shook his head and pointed at Wu Yunlian and Zhuo, who were slowly approaching them. They get the water these days. Kulong stuck out his head and looked at Wu Yunlian with a big smile. Sister, please give me some water. My young master is thirsty. Tell him to come get it by himself. Zhuo pouted and grunted, staying in the carriage all day. He must stink. Weirdo. Kulong smiled in embarrassment and leaned to the carriage. Young Master Yan, Miss Zhuo requests you to come out for water. Shi Yan replied briefly, drew the curtain and walked out with a withered face. He looked dumb, his eyes puzzled, seemingly baffled by a certain problem. Without too much thought, he walked towards Zhuo slowly, grabbed the water bag from her hand, and then drank up. After that, he casually handed the bag back to Zhuo, who was rather angry, and turned back for his own carriage, while mumbling, That water was fragrant, so strange. Shi Yan. Zhuo blushed in anger. That water bag is mine, not your family's. Oh. Shi Yan was shocked by her scream, and finally woke up from his deep thought on the. He asked, So what? Xiaoshe just now drank from this water bag. Of course it would be fragrant. Wu Yunlian smiled and joked, Haha, maybe there's still some of Xiaoshe's saliva in it. Aunt Lien. Zhuo blushed and stamped on the ground. What the hell are you talking about? Kulong and Chu Ping were stunned, with their faces turning strange. Even Han Feng raised his head secretly to look in their direction. But soon, the three went on for their own business like nothing had happened, as if no one had heard Wu Yunlian's words or saw Zhuo's blushing face. Shi Yan realized it immediately, but he still pretended to know nothing and smiled. It's okay. I'm easygoing. I don't hate your saliva at all. Immediately, he turned back joyfully and got back into the carriage at once, not showing up again. Ha ha. Wu Yunlian laughed too hard to stand steady as her breasts trembled. She suddenly felt that Shi Yan was not boring at all. His casual words were really hilarious. Zhuo was dumbstruck for a while. Then her eyes widened and she cursed, Shi Yan, you bastard. Uncle Han, let's go. Shi Yan's calm voice came from the carriage. Okay. Han Feng's mouth formed a strange smile, and he urged Kulong, let's go. Their carriage slowly started moving, and for the first time passed by the other carriage. Standing there with a red face, Zhuo first glanced over at Wu Yunlian, then at the silent Chu Ping, and said angrily, What are you laughing at? What's so funny? It's not amusing at all. You all are so lame. Then she swiftly slipped into the carriage and yelled, "Uncle Ping, be quick! Kick their carriage! Give that bastard a lesson!" Chu Ping was stunned and looked to Wu Yunlian miserably. Wu Yunlian shook her head and jumped onto the carriage. She comforted Zhuo Shi. "Come on, Xiao Shi. Don't be angry. He didn't mean it." "Too rude," he said. Zhuo Shi grunted with indignation, but was too shy to continue. Shi Yan never took it seriously at all. In the carriage, Shi Yan was leaning back and frowning, while odd texts flashed across his mind. The ancient method of the quickly flashed through his mind. Recently, he had wholeheartedly put all of his energy into learning the method. Even when he was having meals, his brain had never stopped thinking. He was trying so hard to understand the practice process of the seal that he was nearly going insane. He was that type of person. Once he was determined to do something, he would focus on it and use everything to realize it, never changing his mind. After so many years of practicing extreme sports, he came to the conclusion that only with obsession could one do things perfectly. At that time, there was only one thought in his mind: to understand the process of the as soon as possible. It was best if he could master the seal before he went into the dead swamp. Only by mastering the seal could he be able to protect himself in the dead swamp and have more opportunities to gain beneficial things. Closing his eyes, Shi Yan tried to relax and began to sort out his recent understandings of the method. After a long while, he willed his profound qi to slowly move from his belly to his right arm. The profound qi didn't move fast, but it was concentrated and was refined within his right arm. As the profound qi gathered in his right arm, the latter became transparent, and even the bone and veins in his hand could be seen clearly. Sure, Yan didn't realize the strange changes in his arm. Eyes closed, he tried to execute the ideas that he came up with recently and refine the profound qi in his arm many times. As his arm began to expand, Shi Yan made up his mind and pushed his profound qi toward his palm. Qi, qi, qi. Wisps of crystal profound qi flew out from his fingers like lightning. Those 5 streams of profound qi looked alive as they lingered around his fingers, but never flew out far. Still not correct. Shi Yan opened his eyes and gazed at the profound qi on his fingertips. His face showed disappointment as he frowned and mumbled to himself, "There must be something wrong. It's not a sign of success. What on earth should I do?" His mumbles became softer as he withdrew the profound qi from his fingers, little by little. Shi Yan sank deep into his thoughts again, obsessively trying to find the truth of the seal. Chapter 82, A Step Further. Chapter 82, A Step Further. In the following days, Shi Yan continued to remain in the carriage, and no one knew what he was doing. Altogether, the 2 carriages traveled in the forest for 9 days. In these 9 days, both Zhuo Shi and Wu Yinlian would come out time and time again to groom themselves on the riverside and collect water for everyone. Every time Shi Yan came out, he would bury himself in his food, and when he was done, he would hurry back into the carriage without acknowledging the others. It was night again. The 2 carriages were parked under the dense foliage of the trees. The horses were released from their reins to graze nearby. After taking bath, both Zhuo Shi and Wu Yunlian were leisurely lying in their carriage, teasing each other in whispers. Chu Ping, Han Feng, and Kulong were guarding the carriages and horses, exchanging their cultivation experiences at the same time. In the carriage of the Shi family, Shi Yan's face was full of seriousness, his expression never being so dignified. After 9 days of relentless study, he was finally able to gain some insights. High right arm was gleaming in light, and one could see some strange little white spots flowing through the veins in his arm. Strands of pure, concentrated, profound qi were repeatedly refined in his meridians. He kept using a special method to temper it. After the 7th time, Shi Yan's right arm, which was continuously expanding, soon grew a whole lot thicker. His muscles looked ferocious, with veins popping out of them, looking very frightening. Huh. Shi Yan lightly shouted, his eyes grim. He kept his gaze on his right arm, and a thought suddenly struck his mind. His right arm abruptly let out a strange popping sound. After the profound qi was refined 7 times, it actually separated into 7 different flows. The 7 flows of power were dispersed into his meridians, with a clear distinction between them. When he put his concentration into his profound qi, the 7 flows of profound qi suddenly converged onto his wrist. In an instant, those 7 flows turned into one, and a lively aura suddenly gushed out from his right palm. Shi Yan's eyes suddenly became as bright as the galaxy. He immediately tried to stimulate that light formed by the 7 flows of profound qi. Boom! The 7 flows of profound qi fiercely rushed into his palm. The center of Shi Yan's palm suddenly burst into bright rays. The mass of strange, profound qi coagulation all of a sudden exploded in his palm. Countless light specks of profound qi instantly filled his palm. They flowed into the lines on his palm, making his hand shine with a strange light. Suddenly, the countless light specks fiercely shot out from the lines on his palm. The light specks were gleaming and, unbelievably, formed into a strange handprint. A glistening handprint took off and flew out. Shi Yan's palm continuously exploded 6 more times, and 6 identical handprints formed into shape. The 7 handprints were like unleashed horses and randomly struck the carriage that Shi Yan was in. Boom, 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 boom. The carriage broke into pieces. The solid wood planks became like sawdust and flew into the air. Shi Yan just sat there on the ground with a serious expression. He looked at the smashed carriage and the flying sawdust around him in surprise. He could clearly feel that 1/3 of his profound qi had been consumed from this single move. 7 burst out, and all the profound qi that had been gathered in his right arm was instantly sucked dry. When those 7 shot out, his right arm returned to normal, leaving only a slight tingly feeling. Zhua Shi and Wu Yunlian jumped out of the Zhua family's carriage in alarm. They gazed at this scene in shock. On the grass, Chu Ping, Han Feng, and Ku Long were also astonished, their faces full of confusion. They had no idea what happened. Shi Yan sat on the ground in a daze. He looked for a second, then coughed and said heartlessly, "Uncle Han, I think we have to ride the horses now." Han Feng's expression was very strange. He slightly nodded and looked towards him perplexed. "Young Master Yan, what the hell are you doing?" Wu Yunlian's flirty little face was full of bewilderment. She stepped up along with Zhua Shi and looked at Shi Yan weirdly. "Why did you suddenly destroy the carriage?" "Can you give us an explanation?" "I got carried away while practicing." Shi Yan shrugged and said, casually, "This is normal. Don't worry about it. The carriage is gone, but the horses are still here. It won't slow you guys down. All this time you were in the carriage and refused to come out was just for practice." Zhua Shi's pretty face was full of surprise. Silly." Zhua Shi shook her head and said in disdain, "Training is the most boring thing. Your grandpa isn't forcing you or anything. Why do you have to put in so much effort?" "Hobby. PSH, I don't believe you." "Young Master Yan, what is the skill that you're practicing?" Wu Yunlian hesitated for a second. Then her expression also slowly turned normal again. The power that was unleashed back in that moment was extremely violent and fierce. That instant explosive force shouldn't be something that an ordinary human realm warrior should have, Wu Yunlian said thoughtfully. "It's nothing." Shi Yan smiled. He didn't want to explain further. He stretched and said to Han Feng, "Uncle Han, my stomach is hungry. Get me something to eat." "Okay." Seeing that Shi Yan didn't want to say anything more, Wu Yunlian didn't ask for more details. She smiled and took Swisher away with her. After gorging down a bunch of food, Shi Yan said to Han Feng, "Uncle Han, I'm going to go wash myself. I'll come back in a bit. You don't need to come along." "Young master," Han Feng hesitated. "It's all right." Waving his hand, Shi Yan reassured him, "I won't walk very far. If there's anything, I'll holler. Don't worry. Be careful, young master." Shi Yan quickly arrived at the riverbank. He jumped into the river and joyfully took a bath and changed into a fresh set of clothes. After coming ashore, instead of rushing to return to the gathering point where Han Feng and the rest were, he moved further away from them. Under an old tree, Shi Yan's expression was solemn. He suddenly invoked the negative energies in his body. In the meridians all over his body, there hid the different negative energies of bloodlust, fear, slaughter, and desperation. They all emerged, and under his will, the negative powers all flowed towards his left arm. The shriveled left arm was covered with white mist. The mist shifted unpredictably, like the faint shadows of ghosts. His mind flicked. Following to the circulation method of the right arm, Shi Yan started invoking the negative energies in his left arm. Under his control, the already shriveled left arm became even more shriveled and shrunken. Looking at that, it was like as if there was only a layer of skin pressing on his bones, which appeared very strange. However, as his left arm shriveled up, a mass of extremely evil power started slowly growing. The thick white mist on his left arm shortly turned pitch black. The arm was also frighteningly black, as if it was heavily toxic. A mass of maniacal, evil, destructive power quickly condensed in his left arm. After 7 full cycles, the power in his left arm flowed down into his left palm using the same technique as his right arm, and together they burst from his left palm. Boom, 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 boom. Following the explosion, 7 pitch black handprints flew out from his palms. The destructive power, along with the thick essence of death, all struck the old tree in front of him. The old tree was as thick as 2 people's waists and around a dozen meters tall. It suddenly collapsed onto the ground. The life force of the lush old tree was instantly cut off. Under the watchful eyes of Shi Yan, the old tree was surrounded by a swirling black energy. The leaves withered with visible speed. The lively old tree looked like it had instantly reached the end of its lifespan and turned into a withered husk of a tree that could not be deader. The leaves that fell from it promptly lost all traces of life. The leaves fell onto the ground, and the surrounding leaves looked as if they were also affected and instantly died. The scene was extremely strange. Shi Yan's eyes glinted with an odd light, and his mind was slightly startled. He knew that that would be very extraordinary, but what he did not know was that it would have such an astonishing destructive force. This kind of destructive power was not only astounding in strength, but more importantly, this additionally came with the power of death. It could actually cut off the life force in plants. This already this frightening. If the N merged together, forming the true, what would happen? Shi Yan took a deep breath in, but he knew that this was not the time to continue experimenting. He heard the sound of footsteps. Shi Yan immediately knew that Han Feng and the rest had definitely rushed here. His expression shifted for a moment, then he hurriedly left and quickly took the same route back. As expected, Han Feng and Kulong hastily arrived. They exclaimed from afar, "Young master, are you all right?" Wu Yunlian and Zhua Shi also poked their heads out from behind Han Feng. They looked at him surprisingly, like they came to figure out what happened. They all clearly heard that violent thundering sound back there, and in that sound there seemed to be a mass of evil power. This made Han Feng and the rest secretly frightened, their minds filled with confusion. "It's all right, let's go back." Shi Yan calmly walked towards them, seemingly unconcerned. I got carried away again while I was practicing. I think it generated some bad phenomenons. But it's nothing. It won't happen next time. Shurian, what martial skill are you practicing? Why do I think what you're practicing is not some ordinary martial skill? Zwasher couldn't hold back anymore. Her face was full of curiosity. Who cares if it's ordinary or not? Any martial skill that can kill is a good one. Sure, Yen said indifferently. You little guy, always acting so mysterious. God knows what you're really doing. Zwasher curled her lips, feeling a little discontent. She snorted and finally said, Come on, hurry up. It's been almost a month. If we're late, that Xia girl won't necessarily wait for us. Xia Xian Yen. Sure, Yen murmured, and suddenly remembered the wonderful taste of that woman's lips. His heart could not help but skip a beat. A shady look appeared on his face, and after a long while he finally nodded and said, Yeah, we should move faster. Don't worry, I won't slow you guys down anymore. Sure, Yen, you can't possibly be thinking of hitting on that woman? Wu Yunlian's eyes were sharp. From his micro-expressions, she saw some clues, and then made a fuss. I'd recommend you to back down. That woman is trouble. From what I see, no man in the Merchant Union would be qualified to make a move on her, not even Bai Mingshang. Well, I had already tasted her. Sure Yen retorted in his mind. Sure Yen snorted, then said in disdain, No matter how noble or how beautiful a woman is, in the end she's going to lay on a man's bed anyway. Xia Xian Yen is no exception. You are so vulgar. Zwasher's face flushed, and she shot a glare at him. How did I not realize this before? So this is your true nature. You are a perverted man too. Bullshit. Wu Yunlian was also upset. I've never laid on anyone's bed. You little punk, truly nothing decent can come out of that filthy mouth. Then pour you. Sure Yen was surprised. Brat, why are you getting on my nerves now? Wu Yunlian clenched her teeth and said bitterly. She now missed the quiet days back when Sure Yen always hid in the carriage and never came out. 3 li away from Sure Yen and the group. The 2 towering, giant men looked murderous, and then said angrily, Mistress, there's a bastard that's talking bad about you. Sure Yan's voice was quite loud, and although they were 3 li apart, the 3 people from the Misty Pavilion still clearly heard what he said. No matter how noble or how beautiful a woman is, in the end she's going to lay on a man's bed anyway. Xia Xian Yen is no exception. Xia Xian Yen frowned, as she silently repeated Sure Yan's words in her mind. Her bright eyes flashed with a cold look, and she said indifferently, Those people are from the Zhua and the Sure families. We don't need to care about them now. Soon we will meet with them. Then, at that time, I will see how arrogant that bastard is. He dares to gossip about me behind my back. Chapter 83. Meeting Face to Face. Chapter 83. Meeting Face to Face. The journey continued. Sure, Yen lost his carriage, so he had to make do with a horse to mediate. But he still found a way to continue practicing Every night, whenever he had free time, he would make an excuse to leave and put into action the knowledge gained throughout the morning. However, every time he tried to join the result was always a failure. The merging of was very difficult. Every time he formed and he was unable to project them simultaneously, either that was executed first or the suddenly lashed out. If one wanted to merge them to form the true, the very first step would be to execute both types of seals simultaneously. Only if this was achieved could they be formed. This required extreme control. It has to be mentioned that the condensing of his profound qi and the negative energies must be synergetic. Existence of any flaw was out of question. Sure, Yen was aware of this. However, every time he tried to put his thoughts into action, he found the process to be very difficult, and all his attempts ended in total failure. Noting that they were getting nearer to the dead swamp day by day, Shi Yan stopped his practice. After all, the simultaneous consumption of profound qi and negative energy was huge. Every time he practiced, his body would weaken for a while, especially when forming the. It required using first. However, there would always be some backlash. In order to be in top condition while in the dead swamp, Shi Yan reluctantly stopped his attempts. Determined that he wasn't going to stress out anymore, Shi Yan was more relaxed. As he no longer spent his time in meditation for the upcoming journey, he had plenty of time to interact with the two girls, Wu Yunlian and Zhuo Shi. While traveling together for some time, Shi Yan gained some understanding of Wu Yunlian and Zhuo Shi. They didn't especially get along very well, but they didn't have any conflicts either. On this day, Shi Yan was riding his horse alongside the carriage of Zhuo family. His expression was serene, and he was still deep in thought about the young master. We're here. At this moment, Han Feng pointed forward and said, quietly, the people from Misty Pavilion are already waiting. Shi Yan stared and gazed into the distance, spotting 3 black dots. Wu Yunlian also stuck her head out, looking into the distance. She then whispered, everyone be careful. Misty Pavilion is an outsider to us. That woman can reach the sky realm, so let's just watch out. Hearing that, everyone nodded. Shi Yan, however, furrowed his brows slightly. He didn't know how Xia Xianyan would react after seeing him. On that day, before Xia Xianyan fainted, she had clearly seen him. Xia Xianyan definitely knew now why she was at the Misty Rain house. During this meeting, who knows if Xia Xianyan would interrogate him or not? But Shi Yan wasn't particularly worried. At the Misty Rain house, the only time he really violated Xia Xianyan was when she was unconscious. Xia Xianyan should not know what he had done. Xia Xianyan never separated far from Shi Yan and the rest. Although she had nonchalantly tossed out the half part of the map, inwardly she was still cautious of them. She was constantly on guard towards the Shi and Zhuo families in order to prevent them from taking any covert action without her knowledge. That day, when Shi Yan had commented on her, she had heard it clearly. She was naturally agitated from inside. But when she saw Shi Yan, she recognized him as the one who had brought her to the brothel. This made her even angrier. What happened that day was deeply imprinted into her memory. Many times in the past several nights, whenever Xia Xianyan woke, she would still feel herself lying in the Misty Rain house. And whenever she thought about it, she would imagine herself lying unconscious on the ground while that guy enjoyed himself with the 2 prostitutes right in front of her. She felt unreasonably angry. Finally, Shi Yan was right in front of her. Xia Xianyan only glanced at Shi Yan once. Then she pointed at him and said coldly, "You follow me. I have some things to ask you." Wu Yunlian, Zhuo Shi, and Han Feng were all shocked. They looked at Xia Xianyan weirdly, not understanding why she would want to talk with Shi Yan alone, instead of asking for Qi Zhao's whereabouts. Shi Yan had already expected her to do that, so he nodded and said calmly, "Okay." Shi Yan's attitude made Wu Yunlian and the rest even more confused. Han Feng was stupefied for a second, slightly worried. "Young master." "It's all right." Shi Yan waved his hand and left along with Xia Xianyan. Shortly, the 2 arrived under an old tree. "That day it was you, right?" Xia Xianyan's bright eyes looked straight at him and asked indifferently, "That day at the brothel, while I was unconscious, you did that with the 2 prostitutes." Xia Xianyan secretly clenched her teeth. "You are the most perverted bastard." Shi Yan couldn't help but laugh. He nodded and said calmly, "I'm a man, this is my nature, there's nothing to be ashamed of. But I don't suppose I did anything to you? In fact, I saved your life. That night, if you weren't at the brothel, the Baiming family might have found you. On that note, you should thank me." Xia Xianyan was a bit stunned. It seemed she didn't expect Shi Yan to honestly admit his lechery in front of her. Xia Xianyan was in a fix, and her expression was changing continuously. It was as if she very much wanted to scold Shi Yan, but didn't know where to start. To scold him that he's perverted? Well, he's already admitted that. He's already so shameless. What's the use in scolding him further? Xia Xianyan felt agitated for no apparent reason. After a long while, she frustratingly shook her head and said, "You did save me, but I'm not grateful to you. What happened that night? I don't want anyone to know, do you understand?" Xia Xianyan's beautiful eyes were cold. Her intention of a threat was clear. "Don't worry, I'm not that stupid." Shi Yan's expression was indifferent. That night, did you do anything else to me?" Xia Xianyan's eyes suddenly showed a little panic. "Anything else?" Shi Yan was stunned, his face full of confusion. "Like what?" Listening to this, Xia Xianyan was raged from inside, and she was continuously repeating the word calm inside her mind. She took some deep breaths and finally said in a cold tone, "I'm saying, did you have any ill intentions of me?" "Of course, yeah." Shi Yan whispered in his mind, but on the surface he looked serious and shook his head. "No, I'm not a reckless person." "You are not a reckless person." Xia Xianyan was staring at Shi Yan. She suddenly realized that she was very easily getting angry when near this person. Clenching her teeth, she sneered and said again, "A perverted bastard who thought of seeking pleasure in a brothel while his family was in a death battle with their enemies. And you say you're not a reckless person? Isn't this really the funniest thing? It's just a normal physiological need." "Sure," Yan said indifferently. Xia Xianyan started at him blankly, her eyes repeatedly showing feelings of disgust and anger. Xia Xianyan slightly waved her hand as if she wanted to say no more. Finally she said, "I wish you forget everything that happened that night. You saved my life once, and I will remember that. During this exploration of the gate of heaven, I will make sure to do whatever I can to keep you safe. After that, we're even." Xia Xianyan could not bear to stay any longer. She turned around and left straight back along the path she came. She was still filled with anger, but there was nowhere for her to release it. "Then I will thank you in advance." Shi Yan shouted loudly towards her retreating figure. A smile still lingered on his lips, as if he had no idea how annoyed Xia Xianyan was. "Ah." In the mass of dark clouds on the sky, a 10-meter-long level 5 demon beast, a wind eagle, floated in the clouds. Bai Mingshang, Bai Mingsu, Yin Kue, Jiushan, Muyu Dai, and Di Yaolin sat together on the wind eagle. Bai Mingshang sat on the head of the wind eagle. He reached his head out to look down at Shi Yan and the rest, who looked as small as ants. Then, with a deep voice, he said they should be going to the dead swamp. "Grandpa, when should we show up?" "Wait until they arrive at their destination." Bai Mingshang furrowed his brows and said, "Qi Shao should be appearing soon. Qi Shao is a true sky realm warrior, and he might discover us. Let's go, we should leave in advance." Mu Yu Dai clenched her fist, her bright eyes filled with hope. The wind eagle suddenly flew off and quickly became a black as it swiftly flew towards the dead swamp, not leaving any trace of its passing. Chapter 84, The Dead Swamp. Chapter 84, The Dead Swamp. Qi Shao arrived 2 days later, and thus the team to explore the Gate of Heaven was complete. The Dead Swamp was comprised of thousands of swamps of all different sizes. These had existed for centuries. Whoever stepped into these would most likely be unable to escape and eventually drown. It was hard to travel in the swamps, so the carriage and horses were left at the entrance, and the team started walking into the Dead Swamp. Once they stepped into it, Shi Yan was on alert so as to avoid any dangers. There were endless green swamps in the Dead Swamp, of which many of them were emitting a green-colored air. In some places, the air was so poisonous that people would rot to death as soon as they inhaled it. Apart from the swamps and poisonous air, there were also demon beasts. The demon beasts had adapted to the environment. They would usually hide in the swamps and jump out to attack whenever people passed by. Qi Xiao and Xia Exayanyan were taking the lead and avoiding all the small-sized swamps. Qi Xiao was a sky realm warrior, so he could avoid the swamp by flying in the air. Though he didn't feel fear, the others did. Even Xia Exayanyan could only reach sky realm when she operated her incarnation martial spirit. Only then could she fly. However, every time Xia Exayanyan used her incarnation martial spirit, her vitality would be damaged. Therefore, Xia Exayanyan rarely used it unless it was an emergency. She was quite cautious along the way, following Qi Zhao's lead. Shi Yan's realm was the lowest among them, and so was his knowledge about this world. Thus, after they entered the dead swamp, he kept mute, carefully observing the dangers in the swamp as well as Qi Xiao and other people's reactions. There is a 3-mile-long swamp in front of us which we can't avoid. Qi Xiao paused, standing on a wet area, and frowned. This swamp should be the safest one around this area. Be careful, we need to take the risk this time. Wearing a rigid face, Shi Yan observed the swamp in front of him with furrowed brows. The swamp was 3 miles long and filled with green mud, at the center of which there were pieces of dry land, enough for 2 or 3 people to stand on. Some of those dry lands were dozens of meters away, while some were only 2 or 3 meters apart. It would only be safe to pass this swamp by walking on the dry areas. However, Qi Zhao's next statement crashed his plans. Don't even hope that the dry areas could hold people. It will sink even faster once you step on some of them. Many of those dry patches just float on the swamp and can't sustain any weight. Once you step on it, it will quickly sink. Shi Yan turned serious in surprise, not saying anything. Don't worry, I will test every dry area so that you can walk on the solid ones. Qi Xiao saw through their worries and smiled. You guys just need to follow me. It will be fine. But some of the dry areas are quite small. They may support my weight, but not 3 or 4 people. So we still need to be careful. Everybody nodded with a rigid face. Even Zhuo Shi, who was quite relaxed before, got a little nervous and observed the dry lands before her cautiously. Miss Ya, there may be a lot of danger. Could you help me with your sky realm energy? Qi Xiao hesitated and looked to Xia Exayanyan. Xia Exayanyan's crystal eyes showed hesitation behind her veil. After a thought, she said, Mr. Qi Xiao, if you can handle it by yourself, please do so. I will be quite weak for a while after using my sky realm energy. I want to save my energy for the 9-headed sky snake, but not these swamps. Hearing that, Zhuo Shi and Wu Yunlian secretly frowned. They assumed she didn't want to help and regard them as her friends. Therefore, they were a little disappointed, though they didn't show it. Qi Xiao didn't mind, though, as he nodded. Well then, let me do it. But you have to be more careful since Miss Xia isn't able to help. Don't step anywhere randomly without my confirmation. It will be tough even for me to save you once you sink into the mud. The group nodded together seriously. Follow me. Qi Xiao took a light breath and flew over and landed on a dry patch. He placed one foot on it, and it sank immediately into the mud. Shi Yan's expression changed slightly with solemnness crossing his eyes. He suddenly realized that this journey may not be as smooth as he had imagined. Thus he had to be more focused. Qi Xiao was calm. Seeing the earth sink, he remarked, You see, this piece can't even hold one person. If you jump onto it, you will sink with it. While talking, he flew up again and landed on another piece of dry land. That piece was quite solid, not sinking at all. This is okay, but still be careful. It may be dangerous if more people land on it. Qi Xiao stamped as he reminded others. The land under him shook and slowly sank again. This can support 3 persons. No more than 3 people can stand on it when you pass through. Qi Shao explained and flew out again. Using the same method, he tested more dry patches. Waiting until Qi Shao flew 100 meters away, Xia Xianyan said calmly, "Let's go." Then she moved her well-shaped body and lightly dropped on that dry area. After a second, she moved again to the next safe area and advanced after Qi Shao swiftly. The 2 huge men who were following her didn't hesitate either, as they stepped one after another onto the dry areas to keep up with her. Zhua Shi, Wu Yunlian, and Chu Ping followed up, lining along the road where Xia Xianyan had passed. "Young master, after you." Han Feng bowed to Shi Yan. "Be careful." Shi Yan nodded, skipped forward, and slowly moved after Zhua Shi. There was a light, acidic smell upon the swamp. After they advanced in the swamp for a mile, Shi Yan found some green bubbles rising out from it, and green gas appeared as the bubbles exploded. "Be careful, that green gas is poisonous. Don't breathe in." Qi Zhao's voice came from ahead. "We are all at high realms, so it wouldn't be a problem for us to hold our breath for a while. I will find the way as soon as possible. Please follow up." Qi Shao didn't stop advancing as he was talking. Hopping on and off the dry areas, he kept reporting, "This is okay. But be careful, it can only contain 2 people." Shi Yan focused his eyes on Qi Shao and remembered his steps by heart. At that time, he quite admired the warriors at Sky Realm, for they could fly over the swamp without suffering so much trouble. His desire for more strength and to reach a higher realm became much stronger. With Qi Shao ahead of them, the group found it much easier to advance. Everybody, except Qi Shao, was rather relaxed. They were all safe in this dangerous swamp where numerous warriors had lost their lives. However, just as they were about to exit this swamp, Qi Zhao's expression changed as he screamed, "Watch out! Something's in the mud!" Pop! 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 3 demon beasts wrapped in mud suddenly rose up from the swamp and jumped toward Shi Yan and Xia Xianyan. This type of demon beasts looked like loaches, with needle-like teeth and sharp bones on their back. 3 demon beasts jumped out of the mud, as 2 of them dashed toward Xiao Xianyan and the other one toward Shi Yan. Shi Yan looked calm. Just as the demon beast was about to touch him, he stretched out his right hand, which petrified immediately and operated his toward that beast. "Chi!" The demon beast bit Shi Yan's right arm but couldn't crush it. On the contrary, its head was pierced by Shi Yan's fingers. Green blood oozed out of its head before collapsing into the swamp. Boom, boom! 2 huge booms came from Xia Xianyan's side. Shi Yan turned back to find that the 2 demon beasts had exploded before they could approach Xia Xianyan and fell into the swamp. A numb feeling came from his right palm, which was covered by green blood. Shi Yan frowned and took out a soft rag from his bag to wipe the blood away. One after another, odd demon beasts showed up from the green, bubble-covered swamp, their numbers reaching about 100 by a rough count. Those demon beasts gazed at them with hatred, as if they were about to pick someone to eat. "Shi Yan, did you get any green blood from the green loach on your skin?" Qi Shao suddenly screamed from the front of the troop. Shi Yan wiped the green blood away casually and turned his eyes to Qi Shao. "What's wrong with it?" "The green loach has too much poisonous gas in its body, so their blood is poisonous too and will rot your skin." Qi Shao was rather regretful. "I had meant to tell you after we passed this swamp, for the green loach rarely appears in this area." "Qi Shao, what are you doing here again?" A hairless, ugly man covered in mud slowly stood up from the swamp. As half of his body appeared, he stared at Qi Shao and scolded. "Last time you stole my green herb, now what do you want again?" Chapter 85, A Co-Master. Chapter 85, A Co-Master. This hideous-looking strange man could easily navigate through the mud, and the dark green scales on his body made him more frightening. As he shouted in anger, the poisonous miasma in the surroundings all began to gather at their location. The dense miasma concentrated around the group and continued to condense into a dense fog. Walala! Drops of green poisonous water clattered down all of a sudden. A poisonous rain fell upon this swamp. Qi Zhao's expression changed as he yelled, "Zhua Qi! Don't you dare make a fuss!" At the same time, Qi Xiao took out a small curtain and expanded it at once, covering the whole group. The poisonous rain fell on the silver curtain and trailed through the edges, immediately emitting poisonous fumes when falling in the swamp. Silver curtain. Face twisted, the ugly man shouted, "You took out your silver curtain! Qi Xiao, you must want to have a good fight with me this time. Stop it!" Seeing the ugly man Zhua Qi about to act, Qi Xiao hurried to stop him. "Zhua Qi, you are mistaken about me this time. I haven't come here to fight with you, but the nine-headed sky snake, and I only took out my silver curtain to block the snake's poison, not to trap you. I don't buy it." Zhua Qi laughed coldly. "You want to fight the nine-headed sky snake alone? Who would even believe that? Humph! You have no grudge against the nine-headed sky snake. You must have come for me." After a grunt, Zhua Qi immersed one hand into the swamp and soon, streams of odd green light shot into the mud. One after another, mud dragons jumped out of the swamp. They were as thick as a human waist and were about 10 meters tall, trying to bite their group. Zhua Qi could not only control the miasma in the dead swamp, but could also control the mud. Shi Yan's expression changed slightly, as he didn't expect themselves facing such a tough enemy right at the beginning of their journey. He was immediately vigilant, circulating his profound qi and prepared to attack those mud dragons. Those mud dragons flew out from the swamp swiftly and moved towards the group from all directions. It was quite magnificent. The dry land on which the group was currently standing on was continuously sinking into the swamp under Zhua Qi's control. Xia Xianyan's eyes turned icy as she decided to use her incarnation martial spirit. "Zhua Qi, believe me, I haven't come for you." Qi Xiao yelled anxiously. Qi Xiao was fully assured that he could beat Zhua Qi, but the consequence to their group would be dreadful. He firmly believed that once they entered into battle, only he and Xia Xianyan could withstand Zhua Qi's attacks. "Shi Yan, come here. I will protect you." Xia Xianyan glanced over him and said without any emotion. Han Feng and Ku Long were surprised and looked at Xia Xianyan in confusion. So were Wu Yunlian and Zhuo Shi. It was unreasonable that Xia Xianyan would try to protect Shi Yan. Sure, Yan dared not take the risk, so he hopped through the dry lands to Xia Xianyan's side. "Zhua Qi." Qi Xiao was astounded. "The gate of heaven is in the Yin Valley. I came for the nine-headed sky snake. Stop now." "What?" Zhua Qi was quite surprised as he screamed, "The gate of heaven?" "Yes, we got a treasure map, and the gate of heaven turned out to be located in the Yin Valley." Qi Xiao had to tell him the truth. Zhua Qi was stunned and then giggled cunningly. As he was giggling, the green miasma in the air began to float away from the group. As the green miasma dispersed, the poisonous rain stopped as well. The flying mud dragons turned back to mud and fell into the center of the swamp. Hundreds of green loaches which were rushing up also stopped as they saw the mud dragons disappear. Under Zhua Qi's order, they went back under the mud as well. Zhua Qi then stopped. Qi Xiao was relieved and stretched his hand up into the air and shrunk the curtain, finally falling into his palm. The swamp went back to serenity. Even the green bubbles gradually disappeared. The dangerous swamp suddenly became quiet. "I know you want to beat the nine-headed sky snake too." Qi Xiao grunted and reproached in a rage. "I bet you would have regretted it if you had stopped too late." As he was speaking, he looked at Xia Xianyan. Qi Xiao could compete with Zhua Qi alone, and with Xia Xianyan at the Sky Realm, Zhua Qi would have been in great trouble. Zhua Qi looked toward Xia Xianyan as he noticed Qi Xiao's gaze and frowned. He could feel a stream of forceful power subsiding in her body. Just from a glance, Zhua Qi noticed that this woman was unmanageable, and she was operating some tricks secretly. Shi Yan stood by Xia Xianyan with a gloomy face, still gazing at Zhua Qi vigilantly. Without taking a look at Shi Yan, Xia Xianyan said calmly, "Mr. Qi Xiao, can you introduce this swamp master to us?" "He is just a co-master." Qi Xiao shook his head with disdain, glancing at Zhua Qi, who was rather unhappy with him, and said, "Zhua Qi is active in the outer area of the Dead Swamp, where there are small swamps and miasma. However, at the center of the Dead Swamp, that is to say, the Yin Field, the nine-headed sky snake takes control. There is no way he could take charge there. Qi Xiao, the Yin Field is mine." Zhua Qi suddenly cried out, "My father practiced there. I will get it back sooner or later." "Till you get it back." Qi Xiao smirked and nodded to Xia Xianyan. "Miss Xia walked to the bank now." Xia Xianyan nodded, glanced at Shi Yan with her brows furrowed, and said indifferently, "Leave now." "Okay." Shi Yan responded casually and hopped through the dry lands where Qi Xiao had tested to a muddy area ahead, and soon he was ashore. Zhua Qi grunted, moved his muddy body swiftly in the swamp, and also reached the shore. But half of his body was still in the swamp, for he was still a little suspicious of Qi Xiao. "Shi Yan, how are you now? The blood of the green loach didn't hurt you? Do you need Zhua Qi's help you remove it?" Qi Xiao asked as he suddenly recalled the incident. Standing there, Shi Yan looked down to his palm and shook his head. "I'm fine." His immortal martial spirit had cleaned the poison before he knew it. Hearing that, Qi Xiao and Zhua Qi looked at him in surprise. Only these two knew that a human realm warrior would suffer fatigue for at least one day after touching the green loach's blood. Others didn't know about the blood, so they didn't care much and walked ahead. Soon, Zuo, Han Feng, and others also got out of the swamp and landed ashore. "Qi Xiao, you really came for the snake?" Zhua Qi raised his head and asked, while half of his body was still in the mud. "Behave yourself for the rest of our journey. Take the lead if you want to fight the snake." Qi Xiao nodded. "Sure, of course I will help if your goal is the snake." Zhua Qi was cooperative this time. "I will send you to the Yin Field nice and safe. But I will go there too, as my father once practiced there and I'm familiar with it. I can help. Apart from the snake, you also want to enter the gate of heaven." Qi Xiao grunted. Zhua Qi didn't deny it, but giggled. "You know the snake's power well. You can hardly beat it. Let me help you, and in turn you let me into the gate of heaven. It's a win-win situation. Miss Xiao, what do you think?" Qi Xiao didn't reply Zhua Qi, but looked to Xia Xianyan. Zhua Qi and the nine-headed sky snake are old enemies. The outer area of the Dead Swamp is his sphere of influence. We won't come across any trouble if he takes the lead for us, and we are more likely to beat the snake with his help. "Okay." Xia Xianyan thought for a moment and nodded. "Well then, you are in." Qi Xiao then replied to him. "Hee, you won't regret." Zhua Qi smiled cunningly, then he was a little stunned. "Qi Xiao, is there anyone else?" "Nope." Qi Xiao was stunned. "Only us." "Then why did a Sky Realm warrior enter the Dead Swamp with several experts 7 days ago?" Zhua Qi asked. "I killed some of his people and fought with him, so I know that he is at Sky Realm. I never left my Dead Swamp, so I don't know who he was. But he was really something. He must have reached the Yin Field by now. A Sky Realm expert." Qi Xiao's expression changed, and he thought for a moment. The Fire Empire, the God-blessed Empire, and the Merchant Union all rarely see a Sky Realm warrior. Who could that man be? What did he look like? Thin, tall, pale-faced, narrow eyes. He seemed to rarely expose himself to the sun, and trained in a gruesome martial skill. Joie, Qi thought for a while and depicted. I don't know who that is either. Qi Xian pondered for a while, only to realize that he didn't know that man, so he shook his head. Never mind, maybe he just happened to pass the dead swamp and has already left by now. Anyway, we have to be on alert. Let's go. Let me show you to the Yin field. Joie Qi finally landed ashore. His legs were covered with green scales. He seemed not used to walking, for he swayed like a duck. However, they all had witnessed his ability. They didn't dare make fun of his hilarious walking posture. As the master of this area, wherever he went, the poisonous miasma dissipated quickly. There were many pieces of dry land ahead for them to advance smoothly. They found it much easier to walk after Joie Qi took the lead. They finished the 1-month journey in only 8 days. 8 days later, the group finally entered the Yin field. Chapter 86, The Yin Field. Chapter 86, The Yin Field. The Yin Field was a place in the center of the dead swamp. The dead swamp was surrounded by countless swamps. The muddy sludge could be seen everywhere. There was almost not a single dry spot. However, the Yin field at the middle of the dead swamp was an exception. Here, there were no swamps and no ooze. The ground was mostly flat, and although not especially dry, it was still not as humid as the outer area of the dead swamp. The Yin field was an extraordinary place. The air above the field was covered with thick, dark clouds all year round, such that not even the sun, moon, and the stars could be seen. Perhaps that was the reason why the Yin Qi in the Yin field was especially heavy. Anyone who enters would feel very uncomfortable. The place didn't appear to be frigid, but the Yin energy all around made people chilled to their bones. One would feel as if they had entered a supernatural space, surrounded by evil spirits. It felt very creepy. When Shi Yin just entered into the Yin field, he frowned slightly. He took a deep breath and felt discomfort seep into his bones. Although it wasn't very chilly here, it still made people uncomfortable all over. Standing on the frigid earth, Shi Yin gazed around and found some strange exotic plants growing. These plants were not very tall, the tallest being only 5 to 6 meters, but they all grew in the weirdest pattern. There were various plants with very pale flowers, absolutely lacking any variance in color. Especially with some plants, their flowers looked like ghastly faces, giving off an extremely terrifying feeling. Just standing in the middle of those bizarre plants made Shi Yin feel uncomfortable. When he looked at those plants, he always felt like they were going to leap towards him and bite him. The Yin Qi here is heavy. The plants that grew from it are very strange. Some plants could even suck in the Yin Qi and the corpse energies, while some others would attack as soon as they smelled the breath of a human and entangle onto that human until they die. Joie Qi scowled as he looked at the different plants in the Yin field and then continued, "Other than plants, you should also be careful of demon beasts. The demon beasts here especially hate strangers. If they see anyone coming, they will attack until you are dead. Usually when warriors go through the dead swamp, they would rather explore the outer perimeter than in here." Slither, slither, slither. Silvery white, long snakes suddenly appeared from within the plants. These snakes were about 3 meters in length. Their heads were cone-shaped, and their tails kept making circular marks on the ground. Their soybean-sized eyes gave out a cold glare. Several dozens of snakes slithered out from the plants. They actually understood how to split up and came from all directions to surround Shi Yin and the rest. Level 2 demon beast, corpse worm snake. Joie Qi sneered and suddenly stomped on the ground. Strange ripples spread from his foot. With him as the center, the ripples formed in ring shapes and attacked towards all directions. Pop, 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 pop. Pop, pop, pop. Wherever the ripples went, those dozens of level 2 corpse worm snakes exploded, sprinkling brown blood everywhere. I hate snakes the most. Joie Chi sneered, his face full of disgust. He turned back to Chi Xiao and said, "Before we come across the 9-headed sky snake, I'll take care of the obstacles on the way. I'll let this be the bargain in return for participating in the gate of heaven." Chi Xiao nodded and replied, "You know this place well, so you can take the lead." Joie Chi didn't refuse and walked straight to the front of the group. Traces of strange green poisonous fog quietly spread out into the air. When the plants in the Yin field sensed the poisonous fog from him, they all contracted, as if they were actually afraid. Many of the plants were originally 3 meters tall, but after Joie Chi walked past, they shrunk to only 1 meter, clearly a whole lot smaller. Shi Yan was amazed. He watched with glinting eyes. Whenever he walked past those plants, he would carefully observe them. He realized that wherever Joie Chi went, the plants were very docile and submissive. However, if he didn't follow behind Joie Chi and chose to walk a few meters in another direction, those same species of plants would actually open themselves up and try to entangle him, looking as if they wouldn't give up till he was strangled to death. "Kid, if you don't want to die, you better follow me." Joie Chi suddenly turned his head and glared at Shi Yan. In his mouth, he was quietly muttering, "I don't understand all of you. You knew that you were going to enter the Yin field, but still brought 2 burdens along. Do they want to sacrifice them later at a key moment?" The burdens Joie Chi was muttering about were obviously Shi Yan and Zhuo. They both were only at the human realm, the ones with the lowest strength. Shi Yan looked indifferent. He was unmoved by Joie Chi's whispers. But Zhuo was not happy. She pouted and said, "What are you muttering about, big earthworm? Who are you calling burdens?" "Humph. If you don't want to come along with us, then you can leave right now. It's not like we can't live without you." "Girl, who are you calling earthworm?" Joie Chi's dark green scale-covered face slightly shook for a second. He murderously glared at Zhuo. "Say that again." "All right." Chi Xiao furrowed his brows and scolded Zhuo. "Joie Chi is an elder. Don't be so disrespectful. We wouldn't have been traveling so smoothly this whole way if it weren't for Joie Chi." Chi Xiao then looked at Joie Chi and said, "Why can't you stop being so foul-mouthed? If it weren't for your stupid foul mouth back in the day, I wouldn't have tried to fight to the death with you. Why are you doing it again?" Joie Chi snorted and fiercely glared at Zhuo, the scales on his face shaking again, but he stopped mumbling. Zhuo, however, wanted to keep throwing a few more insults at him, but was stopped by Chi Zhao's glare. She pouted her lips and stopped talking. Xiao Exayan and the 2 giant men were on the left side of Chi Xiao and the rest of the group. She didn't talk. Her expression was indifferent. She ignored Joie Chi, but didn't have the intention to talk to Chi Xiao either. However, occasionally her eyes would drift toward Shi Yan. The expression in her eyes was quite complicated, and no one could figure out what she was really thinking. Since the day they came out from the swamp, she didn't speak a word to Shi Yan. Shi Yan was also sensible. He didn't make a move to get close to her either. This atmosphere between her and Shi Yan made Chi Xiao, Zhuo, and the rest dumbfounded. But everyone pretended they didn't realize, and nobody went to annoy and ask the 2 about it. "Just come on and follow me. If you want to live, you all better know your place." Joie Chi snorted and purposely looked towards Shi Yan. Shi Yan looked calm. He didn't bother with Joie Chi. Just at this moment, Chi Xiao suddenly furrowed his brows, and a hint of confusion flashed in his eyes. What happened? Xiao Exayan's expression moved. She keenly sensed Chi Zhao's abnormality. Nothing. Chi Xiao shook his head and said calmly, "I just suddenly sensed something strange, but it was gone in a flash. I wonder if I'm just being delusional." After saying that, everyone got a little nervous. Joie Chi said, "Could it be that Sky Realm Master?" "I don't know." Chi Xiao shook his head again. Qi Zhao's reaction cast a dark shadow over everyone's minds and made everyone more cautious. In the Yin field, where there was dense foliage filled with plants, a pale and tall middle-aged scholar silently stood there. By his side were 35 warriors with the same pale face and blank expression. One of the young men was only in his early 20s. With long hair to his waist, he appeared very handsome, but had a kind of evil temperament. "Master, what have you found?" The young man asked curiously. The objectives should have entered into the Yin field, and I just used my soul power to probe a little. Another soul power immediately sensed me. That pale, middle-aged scholar said, "Is it someone from the Baiming family?" "No, Baiming Shang got here a long time ago." "Why hasn't he come to find us yet?" "The objective is already here. Baiming Shang would come very soon." One day later, in the area where that group of people had gathered, Baiming Shang arrived there alone, cold energy writhing around his body. Lord of the Dark World. After Baiming Shang arrived, he put together his fists for that middle-aged scholar and said, "How may I address you?" "Zhou Zihe." The Lord of the Dark World looked calm. "I've long heard the name of the head of the Baiming family. Now that I've met you today, you seem to deserve your reputation." Baiming Shang stretched his lips and said emotionlessly, "Brother Zhou, you should be one with the most widespread reputation. The Dark World has been dominant in the Fire Empire, and from that we can see that Brother Zhou is truly a great talent in the world. Working with Brother Zhou this time, hopefully everyone will be satisfied in the end. Where's that girl from the Mu family?" The Lord of the Dark World furrowed his brows. "After exploring the Gate of Heaven, I will bring her to you myself." Baiming Shang glanced at everyone from the Dark World and said, "Brother Zhou, why have you brought so many? Aren't you scared of being discovered? We, the people from the Dark World, are good at hiding our trails. This you don't have to worry about, Brother Baiming." "All right then." Baiming Shang nodded, then continued, "The other side has appeared. Their target should be the Yin Valley in the Yin field. If any mishaps really happen at that time, I wish Brother Zhou would come out. But I don't want you to identify yourself too soon, or else Mu Yi Dai's resentment will grow. She is merely a bereaved little girl. Do you really need to care, Brother Baiming?" "I don't really care about Mu Yi Dai, but there's another girl by her side. The martial spirit that girl possesses could be of use to my Baiming family. I don't want that girl to know that we gave Mu Yi Dai to you, or else it would affect my plans in the future. Sure, the reason I didn't bring my mask this time is to cooperate with you. I stand as the Lord of the Dark World, and I hardly show my true self to others. That Mu girl has never seen me. She will never know who I am. You can be reassured on this matter, Brother Baiming." "Good, then we will meet again at the Yin Valley. By that time, I will use my soul power to send messages to you. I hope you won't disappoint me, Brother Zhou." Then Baiming Shang slowly retreated. His body faded into a wisp of cold energy and dissipated into the air. "Master, Baiming Shang is cunning in his schemes. This exploration of the Gate of Heaven, we should be careful of him. He's definitely not the good kind. Don't worry, your mistress is here in the dark. If any great treasures really appear, they will surely belong to the Dark World." "Mistress is here too?" the demonic handsome young man exclaimed. "Yes, she arrived at the Yin Valley a long time ago. With her attainments in concealment, no one in the Yin field can ever detect her unless she shows herself." "Ha, then this exploration of the Gate of Heaven is in the bag. Chapter 87, Black Formula. Chapter 87, Black Formula. Following Zhua, Qi, and the others, Shi Yan headed for the Yin Valley without stopping. Zhua, Qi proved his value along the way by removing those odd plants and brutal demon beasts. Zhua, Qi turned out to be the co-master of the Dead Swamp. for he even knew this area, the Yin field, far better than Qi Shao. All along the way, Zhua Qi removed all the obstacles easily. In doing so, Qi Shao and Xia Exanyan could save their energy for the fight with the 9-headed sky snake. The nearer they got to the Yin Valley, the more they could feel the Yin Qi. Gradually, Shi Yan could feel his profound Qi flowing slower and slower. His ribs and bones were experiencing immense pressure from the Yin Qi. So did Zhua Shi. The nearer they came to the Yin Valley, the more pale her face became. Apparently, she wasn't able to adapt to the atmosphere there either. Let's have a rest here. Zhua Qi, Miss Ya, we need to study the treasure map as well. Qi Shao was being considerate of his students, so he stopped at one clean and flat area and took out the treasure map to study with Zhua Qi and Xia Exanyan. Zhua Qi didn't want to stop, but since Qi Shao took out the map, he agreed with him instantly. He walked up to Qi Shao quickly and giggled. I'm very familiar with the Yin Valley. Let me see the map, and I can find the position of the gate of heaven. Xia Exanyan hesitated, and she too walked up. Qi Shao had learned the map by heart, so he handed the map to Xia Exanyan and let her watch Zhua Qi, while he himself walked towards Zhua Shi and Shi Yan. How do you two feel? Can you endure it? Qi Shao looked to Zhua Shi. Zhua Shi's pretty face had turned pale. Yes, I can endure it, but it's too uncomfortable. The Yin Qi has slowed my profound Qi and seems to be consuming it as well. The nearer we get to the Yin Valley, the faster it is consumed. That's natural. Qi Shao nodded and explained the heavy Yin Qi would affect your body, so your profound Qi would try to adapt to it, thus it gets consumed. You too pay attention to it. It's just the beginning. The Yin Qi will be denser in the valley, so if you too can't bear it, you will have to stop before you enter it. Teacher, this seems to be able to remove some Yin Qi, Zhua Shi suddenly said. Qi Shao was surprised, finding it funny and annoying. Then why didn't you train it long ago? I just realized it. Zhua Shi protruded her tongue and grinned naughtily. Fine, fine. I will train with it diligently from now on. I found that once I operate, the Yin Qi can't enter my body. If you were hard-working long time ago, you might have finished training me already. Qi Shao shook his head with regret and resignation. Stop it. It's not too late to start now. Zhua Shi pouted with a grunt. Qi Shao sighed in his mind and turned to Shi Yan. How do you feel? I'm fine. I'm okay with it. Shi Yan replied calmly. Well, do your best. Qi Shao nodded. You should stop when you can't bear it. Then Han Feng will stay and protect you, while Kulong will enter the Yin Valley with us. We only need to find out what's inside the gate of heaven this time. Then your Shi family will send more experts here. So don't worry too much if you can't enter the gate. Shi Yan nodded, not saying anything more. Qi Shao comforted him and requested Zhua Shi to work hard, then walked back to Zhua Qi and Xia Exanyan. Young master, the family head told us that it's most important that you are safe. Don't push yourself if you can't bear it. The family head said that we just need to find out the exact position of the gate and what's inside it. Kulong said in a low voice beside him. I got it. Shi Yan looked indifferent, but his brows were furrowed. A short distance away, Zhua Qi, Xia Exanyan, and Qi Shao were still studying the treasure map. Although Zhua Qi regarded himself as a know-it-all when it came to the Yin Valley, he couldn't figure out anything when he saw the map, as seen from his confused expression when whispering with Qi Shao. Shi Yan glanced over them and sat down where he was, when a thought came across in his mind. He was curious about the gate of heaven, and he wanted to go inside of it too. However, the Yin Qi here was really tough, as it was omnipresent. At the same time, it was becoming more dense, which was affecting his body a lot. Before they got to the Yin Valley, he had to consume his profound Qi to defend from its influence. He couldn't imagine how powerful the Yin Qi would be in the valley. By then, his profound Qi would be totally consumed, and it would be very dangerous if anything came up. I must find a way to defend against the Yin Qi. After a short deliberation, Shi Yan's expression was determined. He sat cross-legged and tried to search in his memories. An idea flashed across his mind. His face lit up. He picked up his bag and took out a book on the mortal level martial skill. It was only an elementary level martial skill, which needed to collect Yin Qi while training. It was best to train with it where there was dense Yin Qi. Since he took the from Karu, he had given up training it as it was only a mortal level martial skill and required a Yin Qi-filled environment. After he got to the Shi family and witnessed so many martial skills, he had forgotten about Therefore, that book was buried in oblivion in that bag. The Yin field here was heavy with Yin Qi. It was the best place to train in Although there was only a mortal level martial skill, since it required Yin Qi, once one was adapted to the environment, he could gather the Yin Qi and use it as a weapon. Sure, Yin didn't care much about its power for as far as he was concerned. It was just a mortal level martial skill, which had limited power. Nonetheless, the could absorb Yin Qi and help him adapt to it, which solved his problem for now. Therefore, he picked up that formula right away. While Qi Xiao, Zhua, Qi, and Xia Xenyan were busy figuring out the position of the gate of heaven, Shi Yan devoted himself to and its practice process. Sitting on the ground, Shi Yan flipped open the book with a solemn face. Before long, he had read through the first volume, and secretly put the book into his bag with his brows furrowed. Although there was merely a mortal level martial skill, it appeared to be strange. To train with it, one must trigger the Yin Qi between the heaven and earth and form 3 Yin swirls around the 3 meridians in one's chest. Tian Ke, Shen Ke, and Yin Du. As long as the swirls are formed, one can trigger and absorb the Yin Qi around them easily. Once the 3 swirls absorbed enough Yin Qi, they would produce 3 Yin pearls, which would go down the 3 meridians. And after that, the Yin swirls could continue absorbing Yin Qi endlessly. As long as there was enough Yin Qi, the Yin swirls would produce more Yin pearls and submerge into the meridians. The more Yin pearls in the meridians, the more powerful they would be. The one who trained with could collect Yin Qi by merely triggering and absorbing it into the 3 Yin swirls. Although there was merely a mortal level martial skill, no one knew how much Yin Qi it could absorb. It seemed that the 3 Yin swirls would devour Yin Qi ceaselessly once there was enough Yin Qi. Shi Yan had seen many martial skills in the martial spirit palace of the Shi family, but he had never seen anything as strange as this one. There was an end goal to train to with every martial skill, but that could be trained endlessly. Sitting on the ground with a rigid face, Shi Yan sorted through the practice process he understood in order to train with and he found it literally extraordinary. However, he didn't hesitate at all. To enter the center of the Yin Valley, he memorized the practice process several times and began to train with it, while Qi Xiao and Zhua Qi were still whispering. Shi Yan connected his eyes, nose, and heart, operated his will to Tian Ke, Shen Ke, and Yin Du meridians and concentrated Yin Qi into them. During that process, his body was still under pressure, as it hadn't adapted to the Yin Qi yet. Gradually, the Yin Qi began to circle around the 3 meridians according to Shi Yan's will. He found that his body was having a strange attraction to Yin Qi as he began to operate While he was refining his Yin swirls, the Yin Qi around him began to gather and poured into his pores. At last, it arrived at the 3 meridians and started to spin slowly. Chapter 88, Strange Scene. Chapter 88, Strange Scene. 8 days later, outside the Yin Valley. We won't enter the Yin Valley today. Everybody have a good rest. We will enter the valley tomorrow morning. Zhua Qi stopped at the entrance of the Yin Valley and said with a gloomy expression, "The 9-headed sky snake will notice us once we enter the Yin Valley. A fierce battle is unavoidable." Qi Shao took out the map again and waved at Zhua Qi and Xia Exanyan. Let's take this last night to study it again. It's best if we could find out the accurate position of the gate of heaven. Zhua Qi and Xia Exanyan walked up frowning and looked down at the map. As usual, Shi Yan found a quiet place far away from those three people, sat down and began to train with it. Every night during the past 8 days, Qi Shao would ask the group to stop and have a good rest, in order to provide Zhuo plenty of time to train with it. Shi Yan wasn't idle either. As soon as the group stopped, he would find a quiet place and train with the under the protection of Han Feng and Kulong. After 8 days' practice, he had accumulated lots of yin qi in the 3 meridians in his chest. He operated the yin qi every day according to his will and divided it into several wisps to spin around the meridians. As the yin qi accumulated, it spun faster and faster and was about to form into real yin swirls. After taking a deep breath and holding it, Shi Yan began to concentrate on controlling the yin qi. Wisps of yin qi began to intertwine at the 3 meridians in his chest, and under his control, was quickly forming into circles. Every time he reached this state, he would reach out to sense the yin qi in his surroundings. It was as if the yin qi was gathering around him under some magical force. After 8 days training in the, Shi Yan started getting hang of controlling the yin qi. At the same time, after several days of revolution in the front of his chest, the yin qi in his body seemed to have changed slightly. The yin qi had become denser since they arrived at the entrance of the yin valley. However, Shi Yan found it quite comfortable thanks to the 8 days of training. Moreover, the nearer he approached the yin valley, the easier he was able to train. It was even rather refreshing to breathe the yin qi. Han Feng and Kulong didn't exactly know what martial skill Shi Yan was training in, but they were still protecting him diligently. Time flew by. All of a sudden, Zhuo, who was guarded by Wu Yunlian and Chu Ping, jumped up joyfully with an odd light sparkling around her body. She shouted, "Ha! It's the 3rd sky of the human realm." Qi Shao, who was focusing on the treasure map, rushed over in ecstasy, and as he grabbed Zhuo's hand and began to test her, his old face showing satisfaction. "You little girl, you are!" From the joyful reaction of Zhuo's profound qi, Qi Shao could tell that she had reached the 3rd sky of the human realm. Zhuo hadn't fully understood the after 8 days of training, but she turned out to have reached the 3rd sky of the human realm. For such talent, there were not enough words for Qi Shao to say anything. The only word he could come up with was genius. During their journey from the Cloud Mountain to Tianyin City, apart from fooling around, Zhuo hadn't trained hard for even a single day. It was out of his expectation that she entered that level so fast. "Mr. Qi Shao, you've got a really great student." Surprise also crossed Xia Exanyan's eyes, as she too was shocked by Zhuo's talent. This girl is really talented, though she is too lazy." Qi Shao was delightful as he patted Zhuo's shoulder. "Work harder. Digest the as soon as possible. You little girl, you could have reached a much higher realm had you focused on practice." Then he walked to Xia Exanyan and Zhua Qi's side and said with a smile, "Leave that girl alone. Let's study the map." Another 2 hours passed. As Shi Yan was sitting there silently, suddenly his body shook heavily and then kept quivering slightly. More and more yin qi concentrated and combined in front of his chest as it spun faster and faster. Looking inside, he found the profound qi around his 3 meridians becoming stronger and spinning faster. The profound qi that he had absorbed rushed into the 3 meridians and then was refined and resolved into more gray strings. More and more gray strings gathered in the swirls inside the meridians, making the swirls spin faster and faster. Not knowing how much time had passed, a gloomy air was suddenly forced out from the swirls, which shocked Shi Yan. More and more yin qi gathered from all directions and gushed into his pores, heading for the centers of the three swirls, while they were spinning faster and faster. Looking inside, Shi Yan was shocked to find that the three swirls had formed a shadow, and that shadow was emitting a strong attraction force. He had succeeded. The strong attraction force meant that a yin swirl had officially formed. Thus, the power of the yin swirl to devour yin qi was triggered. All of a sudden, the yin qi inside the yin field seemed to find an exit and flooded toward Shi Yan. 10 meters above Shi Yan's head, 3 odd swirls, as big as a human head, gradually appeared. Those swirls were similar to the yin swirls inside Shi Yan, and were apparently influenced by the yin swirls in his chest. They spun in line with his yin swirls and were attracting more yin qi to his location. Huge amounts of yin qi gushed into the 3 head-sized swirls above him, which were expanding quickly. In merely 10 minutes, those swirls had swollen to the size of a wash basin and kept devouring yin qi from all directions. Qi Xiao, Zhua Qi, and Xia Exanyan all stopped their discussion about the map and stood up, shocked by what they saw. The 3 swirls were still expanding. 1 hour later, the 3 swirls were like a tornado, extremely frightening. The swirls kept spinning crazily as they tried to devour all the yin qi in the yin valley. With a rigid face, Shi Yan sat there without moving, continuously operating the swirls inside him, seemingly not knowing about the phenomenon above his head. He could clearly feel that the 3 swirls in his chest had accelerated several times. Even his mind found it hard to catch up with the spinning. Han Feng and Kulong were taken aback as they watched the strange scene without any idea as to what was occurring. The dense gray yin qi had hovered in the yin field for thousands of years, isolating it from the sky, blocking both sunlight and moonlight. However, today, the yin qi between the sky and the yin field all went crazy as it endlessly gushed into the swirls above Shi Yan. Not knowing when, the 3 swirls above his head had turned as huge as 3 mountains, filled with odd light. They looked like 3 huge mouths, ready to swallow all the yin qi between heaven and earth. This is... One huge man beside Xia Exanyan cried suddenly, remembering something. What? Xia Exanyan's eyes sparkled, and she turned to watch the huge man. Under Xia Exanyan's gaze, the huge man hesitated and then walked away quietly. Zhua Qi and Qi Zhao's expression changed as they watched the strange scene with incredible eyes. Noticing that the huge man had some new findings, they walked towards them. Xia Exanyan frowned, walked away with the huge man, and let him explain, keeping a distance from Zhua Qi and Qi Zhao. You sure? Xia Exanyan's voice was filled with uncertainty. That huge man kept nodding his head, showing lots of anxiety. Then he looked at Shi Yan in fear. I'm very sure it must be. Xia Exanyan's face turned pale. She nodded and shouted to Qi Zhao and Zhua Qi, get ready for the fight. The 9-headed sky snake will come out soon. It needs yin qi to train with, so it will chase us at all expense. We don't need to enter the yin valley now. Miss Xia, our young master, what the hell happened to him? Kulong was rather anxious. Ask him when he wakes up. Xia Exanyan frowned with bright light in her eyes. But don't worry, that strange phenomenon will not affect him. On the contrary, it is an opportunity. He will suck the yin qi in the yin field clean if not disturbed. What? Qi Xiao, Zhua Qi, Wu Yunlian, and Zhua Shi all screamed in astonishment, with unbelievable faces. Yeah, this martial skill is this powerful. I don't know how he gained it. Xia Exanyan's expression was complex. The 9-headed sky snake will come soon, as it won't allow anyone to devour the yin qi. Maybe we don't even need to wait till tomorrow to fight it. Howl! 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 From the yin valley, crazy hollows came with extraordinary rage. Bang, bang, bang! Bang, bang, bang! Massive booms suddenly came from within the Yin Valley. Everybody shook with the earth, and they could feel that a huge monster was approaching them quickly. There it is! Joie, Qi screamed. Ah! Chapter 89, Forming the Yin Pearls. Chapter 89, Forming the Yin Pearls. Sponsored by A. Al-Sadi, T. Li and N. Mark and I. Ah. The three swirls were floating above Shi Yan's head like giant clouds. Sparks flew inside the swirls, and wisps of cold Yin Qi were repeatedly refined in the swirls, forming strange gray light spots. The air above the Yin field was filled with natural Yin Qi and had remained as such for a long time. But the huge attraction from the three swirls was showing a pattern of rapid consumption, swallowing it to the last. Shi Yan's expression was serious, as if he had entered some enigmatic realm. The swirls above his head suddenly emitted some gray light spots, all of which entered Shi Yan's body. Because of that, Shi Yan's body started forming a vacuum which was felt by everyone present. His body was now like a black hole, sucking in all the gray light spots that came down from above. The gray light spots flickered and jumped and entered into Shi Yan's body. Shi Yan was now covered in a gray glow, and a chilling atmosphere spread out from him in all directions. Whoever got near Shi Yan couldn't help but feel stiff. The circulation of their profound qi would slow down, and they would have to use their qi for defense, or else they would be affected by the dense Yin Qi. It was like Shi Yan had transformed into a giant Yin Qi swallowing monster. Shi Yan was sitting as still as a stone while the three swirls floating above his head were wildly swallowing and transforming the Yin Qi in the Yin Valley. He was continuously refining the Yin Qi, transforming it into purest form of Yin energy, which was in turn nurturing his cultivation. In Shi Yan's chest, the three meridians of Tian Ke, Shen Ke, and Yin Du started rapidly gathering the gray light spots that had rushed into his body. These gray light spots all represented the purest form of profound Yin Qi. Huge amounts of light spots all entered the Yin swirls and were refined to the purest degree. This refined energy then started gathering at the center of the Yin swirls. Unknowingly, in the center of the three Yin swirls, there were 3 rice grain-sized pearls slowly starting to form. Once he detected the formation of the Yin pearls, Shi Yan's expression shook. He discreetly started to detect his surroundings. When he realized there was nothing abnormal, he went back and continued circulating the Yin swirls, ready to keep absorbing more of the natural Yin Qi. You don't need to stop. Xia Exayan stood by Shi Yan's side. Her beautiful eyes glinted. I know what you're doing, and I know you can hear me too. The 9-headed sky snake will get here really soon, but we'll take care of that. You can keep swallowing the natural Yin Qi here. Indeed, Shi Yan could hear Xia Exayan's voice, but he couldn't reply to her. Miss Xia, if Shi Yan doesn't stop here, the 9-headed sky snake will attack him first. Ku Long said hurriedly. Zhua Qi and Qi Xiao also looked at Xia Exayan with a bit of surprise, not knowing what she meant by her proposal. The 9-headed sky snake has 9 heads, 3 of which can breathe fire, 3 can spit poison, and the remaining 3 can control the Yin Qi in the Yin field to attack differently. Xia Exayan's pretty eyes glinted, and she explained in seriousness, the 3 heads that can control the natural Yin Qi are very troublesome, and they will be hard for us to take care of. But now we have an advantage. If Shi Yan keeps sucking in the natural Yin Qi like this, that means once the 9-headed sky snake gets here, the Yin Qi attack will be swallowed by the swirls above Shi Yan's head. This way, 3 of the 9 heads will be greatly weakened. Upon hearing that, Zhua, Qi, and Qi Zhao's eyes both glinted. Together they nodded and approved, not bad. Once those 3 heads become powerless, the 9-headed sky snake will be a lot easier to deal with. Zhua Qi is not scared of the venom, and you also brought the silver curtain. So now we only need to put our efforts into the 3 fire-breathing heads. Because of Shi Yan, this fight is going to be a lot easier for us. Xia Xian Yan said calmly. Zhua Qi and Qi Xiao nodded quietly. They both agreed upon Xia Xian Yan's suggestion. Would my young master be okay? Han Feng suddenly opened his eyes and coldly stared at Xia Xian Yan. Although we are very interested in the gate of heaven, the young master's life is more important. He's only bait. He can just keep up what he's doing now. Xia Xian Yan frowned and continued. If he wants to wake up, he could do so any time. But he will need a whole lot more time to try to gather the yin qi like this another time. Boom, boom, boom. The thundering roar was getting closer. The earth was shaking, and in the distance, a faint but frightening figure slowly started to appear. Get ready to fight, Qi Xiao shouted. At another entrance of the Yin field, Bai Mingshang's expression shook slightly. He looked far away into the distance at the smoke-like swirls that rose into the air. His cold eyes flashed with a trace of confusion. Grandpa, have they started fighting? Bai Mingsu asked. Shaking his head, Bai Mingshang said, No, it's just that the natural Yin Qi has become abnormal. It is our all gathering towards where Qi Xiao and his group are at. The 9-headed sky snake is out of the Yin Valley and is rushing towards them. I wonder what is going on over there. When should we get there? Let's wait. Wait until the fighting is almost over. On another side, the people from the dark world were gazing at the 3 floating swirls where Shi Yan was. They were also full of surprise and didn't know what was going on. Master, it's like the natural Yin Qi has changed and is all gathering towards at one spot. Could it be that the 9-headed sky snake has already started to attack? The demonic young man guessed. The 9-headed sky snake is able to use the natural Yin Qi to cultivate, but it shouldn't be this overbearing. To make all of that natural Yin Qi flow towards one spot, I think even the 9-headed sky snake would be unable to make such a grand gesture. Besides, the change is from outside the Yin Valley. It's obviously done by Qi Zhao's group. The Lord of the Dark World said with a deep tone, Should we go and see it? No, we will wait for Bai Mingshang's news. If Bai Mingshang doesn't give out the signal, we will stay put for now. Your mistress should already be there. So if the gate of heaven really appears, your mistress will send out a signal. We don't need to be in such a hurry. Understood. The 3 Yin pearls were slowly forming, with more natural Yin Qi flowing in. The 3 Yin pearls grew brighter and brighter. The Yin pearls were in the middle of the Yin swirls, outside of Shi Yan's meridians. They were rolling in the air, and whenever a wisp of gray Yin Qi came in, the Yin pearls would immediately absorb the gray light spots. Only when the Yin pearls were truly formed would they finally sink into the 3 meridians by themselves. Shi Yan knew this deep in his heart, so when he clearly heard Xia Xian Yan's words and knew that Han Feng and Kulong were very worried about him, he still didn't stop the movement of the Yin swirls. He had a hunch that the Yin pearls were at their crucial moment, and perhaps they will soon be truly formed successfully and then enter into his meridians. When the 3 swirls showed up above his head, he was shocked too. When the 3 swirls started insanely swallowing the natural Yin Qi, Shi Yan was finally sure that that was only ranked as a mortal level martial skill, was not something ordinary. What kind of mortal level martial skill could cause such a big disturbance? He really couldn't think of any. Roar, roar, roar. Terrifying roaring sounds thundered from the distance and filled the whole Yin field. The 9-headed sky snake was a demon beast which was at the pinnacle of level 7. Legend has it that it was an ancient mutant, a hybrid born from a dragon and a python. It has the ability to keep evolving. So when the 9-headed sky snake has swallowed enough Yin Qi, poisonous air, and fire, it could evolve again and become a level 8 or level 9 demon beast. The reason why this 9-headed sky snake decided to take over the Yin field was because it had seen that this place was rich in Yin Qi, and the outer perimeter of the dead swamp was covered by poisonous fog. It wanted to occupy this place so that it could use the poisonous air and the yin qi present for cultivation. Soon a mountain-like figure, the sky snake with 9 giant heads, finally came out of the yin valley. The 9-headed sky snake had a body like a mountain, covered with silver scales and sharp spines. All 9 of its heads were about 20-something meters long. Each head was like a giant python and had creepy white fangs. Each head was breathing out either poisonous fog, yin qi, or flames. Attack! Once Zhua Qi saw it, his face hardened and he charged ahead of others. Earth dragons abruptly broke out of the ground. Zhua Qi's body flickered, and he possessed one of the earth dragon's bodies. When Zhua Qi possessed the earth dragon, its body covered itself in hard earth armor. The dragon had faintly looked like Zhua Qi's face, and its body grew twice the size. Zhua Qi was born from a level 8 mud dragon and a human female warrior. The mud dragon was originally the true master of the dead swamp and was able to transform into human shape. It was also once the strongest demon beast in this area. Legend has it that back then, the mud dragon was the king of the demon beasts here, and not a single warrior could offend his prestige. The mud dragon was a level 8 demon beast, comparable to a spirit realm warrior. But 1,000 years ago, it suddenly died in the dead swamp. It was a baffling death. Many years after its death, the 9-headed snake finally appeared in the dead swamp and drove Zhua Qi to the outer perimeter of the dead swamp. It forcibly occupied the yin valley to cultivate, which is why Zhua Qi has so much hatred for it. When Zhua Qi possessed the earth dragon and charged at the 9-headed sky snake, Qi Xiao quietly told about the grudge between Zhua Qi and the 9-headed sky snake. Level 8 demon beast. Xia Xianyan's expression also shifted slightly. No wonder Zhua Qi can control the poisonous mist and also freely travel through the mud. So he's a hybrid between a mud dragon and a human. If he didn't know how to control the poisonous mist and the mud, he would have been killed by the 9-headed snake a long time ago, at the outer perimeter of the dead swamp. As long as Zhua Qi could hide in the swamps, nobody can do anything to him. That's the reason why it's so tough to handle Zhua Qi. You too. Can you start fighting now? On the other side, Zhua Qi was in the form of an earth dragon, and he yelled from inside the flames that were breathed out by the 9-headed snake. He sounded a little urgent. Dash. Chapter 90. The Sky Changes. Chapter 90. The Sky Changes. Outside the yin valley, thunderous roars rang out endlessly, and huge amounts of power was surging and propagating across the sky like lightning. Qi Xiao, Xia Xianyan, and Zhua Qi all leapt into the air. They were all facing the 9-headed sky snake with all their strength. Qi Xiao had turned into a giant and was wielding the silver curtain to guard against the venom while he held a giant sword in one hand. He was single-handedly facing the 3 fire-breathing heads of the 9-headed sky snake. Zhua Qi had possessed an earth dragon and was veering around the 3 venomous heads of the 9-headed sky snake. The sky snake seemed to know that its venom was ineffective against Zhua Qi, so it opened its enormous mouth and bit down on Zhua Qi's possessed earth dragon. Xia Xianyan was faring the best of the 3. She floated in the air like a goddess, forming strange seals with her hands. Huge claws would momentarily appear in the air, which would ruthlessly attack the rest of the heads of the 9-headed sky snake. These 3 heads of the sky snake could control the natural yin qi, but whenever it breathed out the yin qi, they would be immediately absorbed by the 3 hovering swirls above Shi Yan's head. After a few futile attempts, the sky snake became furious. It moved toward Shi Yan and repeatedly tried to clash with him. It was determined to kill Shi Yan first. Han Feng and Ku Long were observing everything gravely. Though being uneasy, they stood beside Shi Yan and were constantly on guard. Zhua Shi, Wu Yunlian, and Chu Ping soon arrived at that stop. Now all the members from the Shi family and Zhou family had gathered together, and other than Shi Yan, all were watching the fight between the nine-headed sky snake and the three masters. Shi Yan was sitting still as a stone, his eyes closed and expression indifferent. However, he could clearly feel the striking waves of devastating power. The fight among the Sky Realm Masters destroyed all the vegetation around the Yin Valley. In one place, a deep crack had formed on the ground during the battle. Even Shi Yan, who was sitting with eyes closed, could feel the terrifying impacts. However, he still didn't stop the Yin swirls from taking in the natural Yin Qi. In his chest, the Yin swirls finally turned into Yin pearls. They emitted a dark glow and contained overwhelming Yin Qi. These pearls slowly sunk into the three meridians of Shen Ke, Tian Ke, and Yin Du. Once the three Yin pearls sunk into his meridians, Shi Yan's body trembled. Checking inside his body, Shi Yan realized that when the Yin pearls entered in the meridians, the negative energies already present in the meridians all rushed towards the Yin pearls, as if it was assimilating into the Yin pearls. Shi Yan was startled. He hurriedly concentrated his all in observing his three meridians. He suddenly remembered that all his meridians had some amount of negative energy. He really didn't expect that these negative energies would conflict with the emerging Yin pearls. Inside the three meridians, wisps of negative energy formed into ribbon-like shapes and slowly gathered together. Once the three Yin pearls entered his meridians, the negative energies immediately intertwined with them, as if they were actually trying to break down the Yin pearls. However, the Yin pearls had condensed massive amounts of natural Yin Qi and had formed after continuous and repeated refinement. Although the negative energies in his meridians were domineeringly wicked, they still lacked in quantity. Over the course of these days, Shi Yan had indeed absorbed a lot of negative energy, but the negative energies were spread throughout the meridians in his body. There were 720 meridians in total in his body, and of course the negative energy distributed to these three meridians was limited. However, it was as if the Yin pearls knew the lethality of the negative energy and were determined to defend against it. It was like the Yin pearls were going all out till the end. Soon the negative energy and the Yin pearls in his body stopped blindly battling each other. With more and more Yin Qi pouring into the Yin swirls, three more new Yin pearls started forming in the center of the Yin swirls. This way, the previous three Yin pearls that had already sunk into his meridians gained strong support. The Yin pearls slowly gained dominance within Shi Yan's meridians. On the contrary, it was those domineering negative energies that had to shrink back into the corner of his meridians and stop causing trouble that couldn't gain support. Over Shi Yan's head, the three mountainous Yin swirls continued to rapidly absorb the natural Yin Qi. The Yin field that never sees the light all year round was suddenly struck with its first beam of sunlight. Under the crazy suction of the three mountainous swirls above Shi Yan's head, the Yin Qi that had gathered for thousands of years and covered the air in the Yin field was on the verge of being totally dried up. The cold and gloomy Yin field slowly became warmer because of the influx of sunlight. More sunlight shone from above, and the beams of sunlight shot onto the plants and demon beasts in the Yin field. The strange, bizarre plants soon became limp and shriveled up under the blazing sun. Many demon beasts were roaring in madness. They sprinted out of the Yin field and unwittingly rushed towards the outer perimeter of the dead swamp. "Hey!" Zhou Shi exclaimed. "These plants and demon beasts are scared of sunlight." The plants in the Yin field grow from the natural Yin Qi. They've already adapted to the environment here. But now that the natural Yin Qi is gone, these plants that have never been in contact with sunlight can't tolerate it. They are all going to wither and die. Wu Yunlian explained. "What about the demon beasts?" "They're the same. The demon beasts that live here cultivate by absorbing the Yin Qi. There is a heavy amount of Yin Qi in their bodies, They naturally like the cool shade. So once they realize that sunlight has appeared, they could only sprint away to escape into the swamps in the outer areas. At least there are poisonous fogs and the shade of old trees to cover them. It's better than being completely exposed to the sun like this. Does that mean the nine-headed sky snake is affected too? Indeed. Wu Yunlian was dazed for a second, and she gazed at the nine-headed sky snake. Sure enough, under the blazing sun, the 3 heads of the 9-headed sky snake that breathed yin qi seemed to be getting weaker. Under Xia Xianyan's attacks with the giant hands, those 3 heads could only dodge, possessing no power to fight back. The 2 tall, buff men who were worriedly watching Xia Xianyan at this moment finally breathed out in relief. One of them looked back and gazed afar at Shuryan. He frowned and quietly said, "Thanks to that guy, if it weren't for him absorbing all that natural yin qi like this and exposing sunlight in the yin field, the 9-headed sky snake would really be hard to handle. MHMM. It surprised me that they would spread to here. I wonder where he got such a thing." Boom, boom, boom. Boom, boom, boom. The 9-headed snake stumbled along the way and suddenly sprinted towards the yin valley. The sun had appeared and the 9-headed sky snake's body was heavily damaged. It actually started thinking about running for its life. "Chase it!" Zhua Qi cried out. He ran ahead first, staring at the 9-headed sky snake, and pursued it vigorously. Qi Xiao and Xia Xianyan exchanged eye contact. They both knew that the gate of heaven was in the yin valley. If they gave the 9-headed sky snake enough time to rest, it would become more troublesome later on. Instead, they might as well destroy it as soon as possible. So, Qi Xiao and Xia Xianyan also followed. Thundering roars kept coming from inside the yin valley. Qi Xiao and the rest should still be batting the 9-headed sky snake in the valley. Outside the valley, the 3 giant swirls above Shuryan's head slowly disappeared. All the natural yin qi that filled the enormous yin field had been emptied. In Shuryan's chest, 3 new yin pairs were successfully formed, and together they sank into his meridians. Feeling that the yin swirls had stopped whirling, and not a single trace of yin qi was flowing into his body, he finally woke up. Shuryan opened his eyes and stood up. He looked around at the surprised Han Feng, Wu Yunlian, and the rest, then said, "Let's go look in the yin valley. It sounds like the 9-headed sky snake is almost finished." As expected, when everyone listened, they realized that the stirring in the yin valley had started to die out. "Young master, how are you doing?" Ku Long couldn't help but ask. "I'm all right. I was cultivating a new skill. I just didn't expect this skill to be so strange." Shuryan furrowed his brows. He suddenly thought of something and tried to circulate the 3 yin swirls at his chest. Wisps of strange yin power suddenly flowed out from the 3 meridians of Shen Ke, Tian Ke, and yin do the yin power poured into the yin swirls, and the yin swirls began to quickly whirl, releasing traces of pure yin power. Yin power was different than profound qi, but it went along his arm and flowed out. In his palm, a chilling glow shone, and a dark green light ball slowly covered his whole hand. As his yin power stirred, the light ball became bigger and bigger, and eventually it became a head-sized green light ball. Lightly taking a breath in, Shuryan's reversed the action. That green light ball started shrinking again, and all the yin power returned through its original course and returned to the yin swirls, and was again absorbed by the 6 yin pearls in his meridians. The yin pearls were the source of power of the. They released power through the yin swirls, and then flew out of his meridians to attack. Secretly feeling around for a moment, Shuryan soon realized the way to use the. It's not the same as swallowing in yin qi, but the other way around. "Bai Mingshang, what are you doing here?" Right at this moment, from the yin valley, there suddenly came Qi Zhao's surprised shout. Everyone outside the valley suddenly felt something amiss. "Quickly, let's go and see." Wu Yunlian notified the rest, and hurriedly rushed towards the direction of the Yin Valley. Shi Yen, Han Feng, and Kulong couldn't treat this lightly either, so together they quickly sprinted out and ran towards the Yin Valley with great speed. Dash. Chapter 91, Dividing the Plunder. Chapter 91, Dividing the Plunder. In the Yin Valley, as Shi Yen had absorbed all the Yin Qi between the heaven and earth, there was no Yin Qi left in the Yin Valley. The dazzling sunlight fell in the valley. The massive body of the nine-headed sky snake fell at the center of the Yin Valley with blood dripping from wounds all over its body. Under the attacks of Qi Shao, Zhua, Qi, and Xia Xanyan, and without any Yin Qi, the nine-headed sky snake finally died under the sun. However, apart from Qi Shao, Zhua, Qi, and Xia Xanyan, there were other people who had also entered the Yin Valley. The group, including Shi Yen and Zhua Shi, had also arrived in the valley by then. As soon as Shi Yen saw the scene in the valley, his face turned gloomy. Bai Mingsu and Bai Mingshang were standing there. Yin Kuei and Jiu Shan were naturally standing by Bai Mingsu. Mu Yu Dai and Di Yalin were excited to see the nine-headed sky snake lying in its own in blood. Beside the experts of the Bai Ming family stood Zhou Zihe and a strange young man. All the people in the valley were focusing their eyes on the nine-headed sky snake in the center. Qi Shao and Zhua Qi appeared tired, with sweat all over their bodies. Xia Xanyan looked pale, although she had taken a sky pill. Her energy had not fully recovered. The three had tried everything and used up all their energy in killing the nine-headed sky snake, only to find that Bai Mingshang and another sky realm expert had appeared in the Yin Valley secretly. It was easy to understand their frustration. After Shi Yen entered the valley, he stood beside Han Feng and Kulong, calmly gazing at Mu Yu Dai and Di Yalin, who were quite excited. Everyone can have the treasure from the nine-headed sky snake carcass. This sky snake has 9 demon crystals. How about we divide it among ourselves? Bai Mingshang frowned and said calmly, "You three really suffered a lot, so I won't ask for much. I only need 2 demon crystals out of 9, one of the fire element and the other of Yin Qi. Why on earth should you have a share?" Zhua Qi's face was twisted as he demanded with a hideous expression, "All the demon crystals of the nine-headed sky snake belong to us. We brought out our all to kill this snake, and now you want us to share the booty with you? Why should we?" "Why?" Bai Mingshang said coldly, "Because we are here. I want a cut also." The Dark Master of the Dark World said peacefully as he pointed to one of the snake heads which could emit Yin Qi, "The demon crystal in that head is mine. The rest are all yours." Zhua Qi showed a grim smile. "You have to first make sure you are capable of getting it." "Capable or not, you must know it better than me." The Dark Master looked at Zhua Qi and said peacefully, "We tested each other at the perimeter of the Dead Swamp, and you killed several of my people. However, that was in the outer area where you could use the swamp and poisonous air as your shield. What about here? Brother Zhou?" Bai Mingshang looked to the Dark Master and grinned. "There seem to be 3 Sky Realm warriors, but that's not the exact situation." "Really? Miss Xia's martial spirit is marvelous, but she is a mere disaster Realm 3rd Sky warrior." Bai Mingshang pointed to Xia Xanyan. "She won't recover in a short time since she has used her martial spirit. We don't need to worry about her." Xia Xanyan's face turned pale after she heard that. Zhua Qi's expression was also changed, and he couldn't help but look to her. "Is that so?" As far as he was concerned, although he and Qi Shao had consumed much energy, they could still make them give up the demon crystals as long as they received Xia Xanyan's help. However, if Xia Xanyan was only at the 3rd sky of the disaster realm, then they would definitely lose. Under Zhua Qi's gaze, Xia Xanyan nodded in resignation. "Bai Mingshang, why on earth are you here?" Qi Xia had some other concerns. He thought for a while and asked, "What do you think?" Bai Mingshang asked with a grin, "I got it." Qi Xiao sighed and nodded. "You have come for the gate of heaven, haven't you? It seems you never let go of the treasure map. Our sources in the Tianyan city are far greater than you can imagine. Nothing would go unnoticed if I care to know." Bai Mingshang walked over slowly to one of the snake heads and continued calmly, "Let's divide the demon crystals first. Then we will have a discussion about the gate of heaven." Under the watchful eyes of the people present, Bai Mingshang took out a demon crystal and said, "I want this one." The Dark Master from the Dark World didn't move, and he demanded casually, "Mu Hui, get the demon crystals." That exotic young man nodded with a smile and walked to the two snake heads without minding Qi Xiao and the rest, knowing they dare not fight. Zhua Qi was in a rage, with his face as red as a tomato, but he stood there and clenched his teeth. "I will remember you too." Bai Mingshang and Dark Master didn't respond. Zhua Qi gouged the remaining 5 demon crystals. Qi Xiao sighed with resignation. Zhua Qi also went up to the snake body. While searching for the demon crystal in the snake heads, Zhua Qi seemed to try to release his indignation by acting in a rough manner, as blood and flesh flew out from those snake heads. Shi Yan was observing them coldly. Bai Mingshang and Zhou Zi, he apparently had planned all this and were waiting for the best opportunity. Bai Mingshang showed up while Qi Xiao and his friends were about to kill the snake and took advantage of Xia Exanyan using her reincarnation martial spirit to ask for a share of the plunder. That was really malicious. He conserved his energy by not doing anything, and by forcing Qi Xiao and the other two to consume their energy, he shared the plunder. Once the gate of heaven was opened, he would get more chances to gain treasures than them with his energy at its peak. Shi Yan took a deep breath and calmed himself down. He didn't say anything, but observed the new groups while they were dividing the plunder. Before long, the plunder was divided. Of the 9 demon crystals, the Baiming family got a fire crystal and an Yin Qi one, while Zhou Zi, he got the other 2 Yin Qi demon crystals. Of the remaining 5, Zhua Qi got 2 poisonous ones, and Qi Xiao got another poisonous crystal and a fire elementary one. Xia Exayan also received a fire elementary one. The 9 demon crystals were thus divided among the experts present. Later, the tusks, skin, and saliva from the snake was also harvested by the group. Since there were several sky realm warriors, those rare materials like tusks were soon collected and divided. This time, the Shi family got 5 poisonous tusks, a piece of skin from the back of the snake, and 3 bottles of poison. This demon crystal of fire element is beneficial to your martial spirit. Bai Mingshang threw his hand casually, and a demon crystal flew slowly to Di Yalin. Di Yalin was rather surprised as she looked at Bai Mingshang with uncertainty and asked excitedly, Bai Ming family head, you mean this demon crystal is for me?" The fire element demon crystal was indeed beneficial to Di Yalin's blue magic flame, and it was from a level 7 demon beast, which was very rare to her. Bai Mingshang nodded with a beaming smile. "Come, train hard with the help of this demon crystal. I won't treat you unfairly as long as you are in my family." Di Yalin was hesitant as she thought that the demon crystal was too precious. She was too shy to take the crystal, which was floating before her eyes. "Here you are, Sister Lan. Put it away." Just then, Mu Yu Dai grabbed the demon crystal and handed it to Di Yalin. "Thank you, Bai Ming family head." As soon as she touched the crystal, she could feel the strong flame power emitting from it. Di Yalin didn't hesitate anymore and paid her gratitude to Bai Mingshang quickly. "We are family. You don't need to say that." Bai Mingshang said indifferently. Di Yalin was a little panicked as she understood the overtone of Bai Mingshang, but still she lowered her head and pretended she didn't get what he meant, holding the demon crystal tight. She couldn't resist the temptation of the demon crystal. Shi Yan saw the whole thing, but he kept silent with a rigid face. Dash. Chapter 92. The Gate of Heaven Appears. Chapter 92. The Gate of Heaven Appears. Can we talk about the treasure map now? After the various masters divided all the valuable items on the nine-headed sky snake, the Lord of the Dark World, Zhou he suddenly spoke. The sky was slowly getting dark, and soon night fell. In the valley, everyone was frowning. Not a single person seemed relaxed. Bai Mingshang and Zhou he both looked at Qi Shao. Mr. Qi Shao, you wouldn't refuse to allow us to participate, right? Bai Mingshang said casually. Qi Zhao's expression changed. He was standing there and thinking deeply. He glanced first at Xia Xanyan, then at Zhua Qi, and felt a bit hesitant. Xia Xanyan was slowly recovering after taking a nutrition pill, but she was still far away from being completely recovered. At this moment, the opposite side had two Sky Realm warriors. However, with Qi Shao and Zhua Qi only at 80% strength, it was predetermined that they would be at a disadvantage. Let's take it out and have a look together. We haven't been able to find the Gate of Heaven anyway. Xia Xanyan said in an indifferent and relaxed manner. Miss Xia Xanyan knows about onset and retreat. Truly you are someone who can achieve great things. Bai Mingshang nodded, and then told Xia Xanyan with a straight face, Miss Xia, the Bai Ming family has only come for the treasure map. We don't want to make enemies with the Misty Pavilion. After this, no matter what the outcome, the Bai Ming family will never bother the Misty Pavilion even a bit. Xia Xanyan was from the Endless Sea, and with just being at the third sky of the Disaster Realm, she could utilize her martial spirit to immediately reach the Sky Realm. This little girl was already this powerful. How powerful would her background would be? Bai Mingshang held a lot of fear towards warriors from the Endless Sea. If not as a last resort, he didn't want to have a hostile relationship with Xia Xanyan. I also came for the treasure map. Not a single trace of emotion could be seen on Xia Xanyan's eyes as she spoke. After business with the treasure map is finished, we will return to the Endless Sea. As long as the Misty Pavilion is not provoked, we from the Endless Sea wouldn't bother to come to such a remote area. That would be for the best. Bai Mingshang said, I'll warn you beforehand, though, even if there may be incredible treasure in the Gate of Heaven, it will also be infested with unimaginable dangers. Xia Xanyan hesitated for a moment, then said, There hasn't been an appearance of the Gate of Heaven in your area, so your understanding of the gate is only limited to rumors. You may be aware of only one side of the coin, and not the other. Any further details would be appreciated. Whether it be Bai Mingshang or Zhou he from the Dark World, they both zoned out for a second, then looked at Xia Xanyan with serious expressions. Indeed, in the God-blessed Empire, the Fire Empire, and the Merchant Union, the legend of the Gate of Heaven had spread. However, there had never been an appearance of the Gate of Heaven in these three nations, which is why, when this treasure map appeared, it attracted the attention of so many forces. Qi Shao, Zhua Qi, and Han Feng also expectantly looked at Xia Xanyan. They were also full of curiosity about the secrets to the Gate of Heaven. In the Endless Sea, not only does the Gate of Heaven exist, but there's more than one. But every Gate of Heaven bears the greatest dangers. Xia Xanyan took a deep breath. There was a rare seriousness in her expression. She said with a deep voice, The Gate of Heaven leads to the God Domain. The God Domain contains unimaginable mysteries, but every God Domain is also extremely frightening. Usually when a warrior enters, there's a very low chance of coming back alive, whether it be the fourth demon area, the sevenfold underworld, or the abyss battlefield. None of them could be entered by ordinary people. Fourth demon area, sevenfold underworld, abyss battlefield. Coming from Xia Xanyan's mouth, The names related to the gate of heaven and the god domain of the endless sea made everyone present in the valley astonished. They secretly felt stunned. I came this time only to see what mysterious god domain this gate of heaven leads to. Unknown domains could lead to terrifying and mysterious places that may devour everything. You better get prepared beforehand. Xiao Xanyan looked around and said coldly, inside the god domains that have appeared in the endless sea, there are powerful beings that were as powerful as the spirit realm, and there were more than one of them. If there are such beings in this god domain too, and you all want to rashly break in, don't expect to come out alive. Xia Xanyan's words raised a storm of shock in everyone's minds. Whether it be Bai Mingshang, Zhou Zi, He Qi Xiao, or Zhua Qi, they were all suddenly stunned, their expressions aghast. Spirit realm beings? And more than one. What kind of concept was this? If the god domain accessed from this gate of heaven also has a being of this level, who in this whole valley can say that they will get out alive? The entire valley was silent. What are you all afraid? Xia Xanyan sneered. No matter what, I still have to go in and take a look. Zhou Zihi's lips were a bit dry, but after a long silence he then said, or else how would we know what's inside? Miss Xia is only at the third sky of the disaster realm and still dares to come. What are we afraid of? When Zhou Zihi put it that way, everyone finally realized. Xia Xanyan came this time, obviously, because she wanted to enter the god domain too. She knew the dangers of the god domain, but still dared to come. Was it that she really came to die? Thinking this way, everyone all felt that Xia Xanyan was only scaring them. Maybe the god domain wasn't even that dangerous. I have said what needed to be said. You guys can figure it out yourselves. Xia Xanyan nodded at Qi Xiao. You can take out the treasure map now. Qi Xiao knew that it would be hard to avoid Bai Mingshang and Zhou Zihi, so with frustration he could only take the treasure map out from his chest pocket. Bai Mingshang and Zhou Zihi hurriedly moved closer and gathered around the treasure map to examine it. The treasure map only marked one point in the Yin Valley, which is pointing to this place here, but there's nothing there. Zhua Qi scowled and said coldly, I've gone around many times in the valley before, and even used my soul perception to scan the movements underground. But there's nothing at all. Is this treasure map fake? Can't be fake, Xia Xanyan said with certainty, but she did not explain. Everyone knew that she came from the endless sea, and her understanding of the gate of heaven and the god domain was above their own. Upon hearing her say that, everyone immediately stopped worrying, and they all stared intensely at that treasure map. Each one was in deep thoughts and paced around in the Yin Valley, as if trying to figure out the location of the gate of heaven. Shi Yan was standing with Han Feng and Kulong. He didn't get mixed into the business. He just coldly observed these people's reactions and occasionally glanced at Mu Yudai and Diaolin. Mu Yudai and Bai Ming stood together. Sometimes they would both chat and laugh quietly about something, and sometimes Mu Yudai would simply press her lips and smile. Diaolin was still drowning in happiness, her hands tightly gripping the fire demon crystal and her face full of excitement. The look on her face was clearly showing her impatience to start absorbing the energy in the demon crystal then and there, so that she could nourish her martial spirit right away. Time passed quickly. All the sky realm masters in the valley looked worried. They frowned and pondered about the secrets of the treasure map, but no one could figure out the location of the gate of heaven. Soon the day passed and it was nighttime. Twinkling bright, stars appeared in the darkness. Slowly, more stars appeared in the night sky. And finally, an array of stars filled the entire night sky. Suddenly, the treasure map clutched in Zhua Qi's hand started to light up. Everyone's faces changed, and their eyes immediately went to the treasure map. The treasure map escaped Zhua Qi's hold. It slowly rose in the sky higher and higher, and very soon it was floating in the sky above the Yin Valley. a mass of strange power suddenly rippled from inside the treasure map. The light of the stars seemed to have been drawn in by the power of the map. Like raindrops, the bright starlight suddenly poured down from the sky and onto the treasure map. Boom! The treasure map suddenly blew to pieces, and a fist-sized, clear demon crystal abruptly appeared out of thin air. A strange power filled the whole Een Valley, and the demon crystal gleamed with light, clear and bright as a quartz. Inside the demon crystal was a sluggish-looking little person. His body glowed with light, and his expression extremely miserable. "Father!" Joie Chi suddenly screamed. He unbelievably looked at the little person inside the demon crystal and roared, "Father! I am Joie Chi. Father!" The demon crystal of the level 8 mud dragon. Chi Xiao also exclaimed, his expression in awe. In the valley, one by one the warriors raised their heads to look up at the sky. They all looked appalled, not knowing what happened. The little person inside the demon crystal didn't seem to hear Joie Chi's voice. It stayed in the demon crystal, looking dazed. The level 8 demon crystal became brighter and brighter, and a strange mass of power suddenly rippled out from it. "Ah!" Di Yalin exclaimed and sweetly shouted, "My demon crystal!" The 9-headed sky snake demon crystal that was tightly clenched in her hand suddenly flew up and rose to the sky. At the same time, the 8 newly acquired demon crystals held by Bai Mingshang, Zhou Zihi, Qi Xiao, Joie Qi, and Xia Exenyan all escaped from their grasp. One by one, they soared into the sky, revolving around the level 8 demon crystal that contained the spirit of the mud dragon. Colorful strange lights shone from the 10 demon crystals in the sky and brightened the whole Een Valley. In the valley, the snake blood that bled from the 9-headed sky snake moved as if it was alive, forming into a river of blood that flowed inside the valley. The bloody river was like a mysterious paintbrush. With its metallic odor, the blood separated into different flows, and like a blood snake, it swiftly moved across the ground of the valley. Soon, with the blood of the 9-headed sky snake as the catalyst, a strange pattern drawn by blood magically appeared on the ground. Boom, boom, boom. Boom, boom, boom. Boom, boom, boom. Boom. The 10 demon crystals in the sky exploded together, forming into 10 beams of light, and suddenly drew into the strange pattern on the ground. The galaxy-like strange pattern abruptly flashed strange lights. The starlight from the night sky came down from the sky and also infused into the pattern. In the middle of the great galaxy-like pattern, strange lights quickly gathered together. Thousands of light spots condensed together and slowly formed into a blindingly bright door of light. The gate of heaven had appeared. Chapter 93, The God Search Skill. Chapter 93, The God Search Skill. Tianyun City. That night, black spots appeared in the sky above the city. Those black spots, as seen under the moonlight, gathered together and flew in the direction of the misty pavilion. Many skilled warriors looked up, only to find that these black dots were in actual some strange demon beasts. 50-odd black spots gradually flew toward the misty pavilion like a dark shadow. As soon as these black spots landed, many sharp-eyed warriors found them to be 50 black bats, which were about 7 to 8 meters long with a completely dark body and long tusks. They looked as if they were creatures from hell. Each bat was emitting a black aura which felt gloomy and frightening. Seated on each of those huge bats was a warrior, his face rigid, stance like a reaper, emitting a bloody aura, as if one's life was totally in his control. At the front of the group was a huge bat, on which was sitting a scar-faced, middle-aged man. His scars were very hideous. The scars on his face looked like earthworms extending from his face down his neck, looking as if there was a veil on his actual face. He was emitting a deep and bloody aura. Whoever approached him would want to throw up from the suffocating smell. 51 green-blooded magical bats landed before the Misty Pavilion. The master of the Misty Pavilion, Ku Luo, had waited for a long time with his people. As soon as he saw the guests, he kneeled down on one knee and greeted them respectfully. "Lord Shao, this is Ku Luo from the Misty Pavilion." Shao Han Yi, who got down from the huge bat at the front, walked over at a leisurely pace. The people from the Misty Pavilion all turned pale and averted their eyes as he approached and could barely control their desire to vomit. One after another, these Shura escorts from the Yang family of the Endless Sea dismounted from their rides and followed after Shao Han Yi to enter the Misty Pavilion. All the bats remained in the square outside the Misty Pavilion, watching the many kneeling warriors expectantly with their cold green eyes, treating them as if they were fresh meat. Being stared at in such a manner by the bats, the warriors of the Misty Pavilion were completely horrified and panicked a lot. Shao Han Yi sat on the head seat casually and glanced at Ku Luo. "What's the situation?" Miss Xia went to the dead swamp, since the gate of heaven was found there. The treasure map was completed. Ku Luo was anxious. "I'm not asking about that." Shao Han Yi's face turned cold. An invisible power exploded outwards within the pavilion suddenly. That power constricted Ku Luo as if there was a big hand on his neck and lifted him to drop him in front of Shao Han Yi. "Father! Lord!" Ku Luo's family members all were horrified and looked at Shao Han Yi in anger, ready to fight for their lives. Some of the Shura escorts coldly glanced at them indifferently when one of them asked, "Lord, do you need to finish Ku Luo's family?" "Lord Shao." Ku Luo struggled, coughed, and begged in fear. "Lord Shao, we've tried our best. Give me some more time. We will find Yang Hai. Keep your eyes open." Shao Han Yi stared at Ku Luo and grunted. Bang! Ku Luo fell from midair and dropped to his knees on the ground. He nodded in fear and explained, "We took every man named Yang Hai to the Tianyan city, but none of them was the one we want. We are searching out of town now, and will get news soon. Give me the blood spirit crystal." Shao Han Yi thought for a while and stretched out his hand. The blood spirit crystal left by Xia Xianyan on Ku Luo suddenly flew out from him and landed in Shao Han Yi's hand. Everybody except Ku Luo get out. After getting the blood spirit crystal, Shao Han Yi ordered calmly. "All dismissed." Ku Luo signaled to his people. Soon, there were only Shao Han Yi's people left in the room. "I don't have so much time." Shao Han Yi grunted and said indifferently, "It turns out that the Xia family is really slow. So much time for a single person." Then Shao Han Yi caressed the blood spirit crystal and closed his eyes. Centered on Shao Han Yi, a strong will pervaded throughout Tianyan City in all directions. Inside that blood spirit crystal, a red light suddenly manifested and numerous faces, filled with all sorts of expressions, appeared on the surface of the crystal. Their faces flashed like ghosts inside the blood spirit crystal, and none of them stayed for more than 3 seconds. The God Search skill. Ku Luo was shocked. The God Search skill was a mysterious tracing skill. Once one had the target's blood, flesh, bone, or even a hair, he could find the target with this skill. The better one can use his will, the larger the search area it could search. Shao Han Yi closed his eyes, and his huge willpower covered the entirety of Tianyan City. In Tianyan City, all the Nirvana warriors who had formed will see could feel clearly a horrifying will see lingering above Tianyan City. Many experts in Tianyan City were astounded. This was more than 2 levels higher than Baimingshan's, covering the entire Tianyan City, and kept moving further. At that time, all the experts in the 5 big families felt threatened. At this crucial point, every minister of the 5 families exchanged messages and started guessing what the Misty Pavilion was going to do. The god's search skill was continuing. The horrifying will see shook the whole Tianyan city, like tornado, where every creature was tested. All of a sudden, blood exploded in the blood spirit crystal, and odd light spots gathered, showing a fat face in it. The picture in the blood spirit crystal turned clear. That guy was sitting in a carriage in the west of Tianyan City, heading for the city. Xiao Han, he suddenly opened his eyes. Who is he? Shi Jian's adopted son, Yang Hai. Ku Luo's face changed in astonishment. It is him. Xiao Han, he quickly stood up and vanished. The next moment, the sound of green blood magical bats filling the sky came from the misty pavilion. 1 hour later, Xiao Han brought Yang Hai back, who had a blank expression on his face. Who are you? Humph. Has the Mo family invited you here? Yang Hai was kind of calm, but when he saw Ku Luo, he shouted in anger, Ku Luo! Has your misty pavilion cooperated with the Mo family? What's going on? We 3 families worked together to search for the treasure. What the hell do you want to do? Ku Luo smiled bitterly and made an apologizing bow, saying in embarrassment, different things. Different. It's good to see you, young Master Hai. I'm the leading Shura escort from the Yang family, Xiao Han Yi. Xiao Han Yi bowed. I will explain everything to you. Xiao Han Yi explained the story to Yang Hai politely. Young Master Hai, our family head is battling in the 4th demon area now, so I came to take you back. Since the family head threw you out of the 4th demon area, he has been worried about you, but he was badly injured and had to recover first. The Endless Sea? The Yang family? Yang Hai was shocked, confused, and unable to think straight. Standing there, his expression continuously changed as different ideas popped up to his mind. Just then, he remembered that test Shi Yin did on him in the gravity room. His arm was cut, but quickly recovered in presence of Han Feng, which showed it was an amazing martial spirit. Hearing Xiao Han Yi say such, he was sure that he meant it. However, he was used to living in the merchant union, and Shi Jian was good to him. Besides, his son Shi Yin was here, and he was not a warrior himself. With all sorts of matters behind him, Yang Hai was so pressured that he didn't want to start a new life in the Endless Sea. After a long time, Yang Hai shook his head. I'm not going to the Endless Sea. I never trained in martial arts. It's too late to begin training at this age. I'm used to the life here and don't want to live in the Endless Sea. I'm afraid you have to leave without me. Just think I'm dead. Young Master Hai. Xiao Han Yi yelled. As a descendant of the Yang family, you have to fight for the family. After a pause, Xiao Han Yi added, although young Master Hai is not young anymore, don't worry, the family had expected it. He had long prepared an immortal pill, and this royal level pill will change you entirely. It will be easy for you to enter the disaster realm in 10 years. Immortal pill! Ku Luo cried out loud and tried to persuade Yang Hai. Young Master Hai, the immortal pill is one of the 7 magical medicines in the Endless Sea. One immortal pill can really change everything. Even your talent will change with it. Young Master Hai, seize this opportunity. Royal level pills. Though the 3 medicine kings in the Medicine Valley were soul level alchemists, they couldn't ever refine royal level pills. Till now, royal level pills had never appeared in the Fire Empire, God-blessed Empire, or the Merchant Union. It was said that one royal level pill could change everything. Xiao Han Yi and Ku Luo's speech made Yang Hai rethink. His expressions changed in front of the temptation of the pill. I never trained martial arts since I was a kid, so I can adapt even if I became a warrior right now. After a long silence, Yang Hai looked at Xiao Han Yi and said, my heart has died since my wife's death. I have no dream anymore. However, my son is in his prime age and possesses both the immortal martial spirit and the Shi family's petrification martial spirit. Although he hadn't trained in the first 17 years of his life, he advanced to the 3rd sky of the nascent realm. Maybe you could give the immortal pill to him. Shi Yan. Ku Luo cried out and said to Xiao Han, Lord Xiao, Shi Yan is awesome. Young, with potential, ambitious, and strong-minded. 17. Twin martial spirits, in the third sky of nascent realm. Xiao Han mumbled to himself while his eyes lit up. Where is he? In the Yin Valley of the Dead Swamp. Ku Luo ingratiated. Young Master Hai, I will go see Shi Yan first. Excuse me. Xiao Han bowed to Yang Hai and disappeared in an instant, with his voice ringing outside the misty pavilion. Let's go to the Dead Swamp. Ah. Chapter 94, I'll go. Chapter 94, I'll go. Inside the Yin Valley, an enormous galaxy pattern emerged from the blood of the sky snake. In the middle of that galaxy pattern, thousands of lights gathered, forming into the blindingly bright gate of heaven. All the warriors gathered in the valley were looking at the gate of heaven, but none of them dared to enter first. On the other hand, Shi Yan was quite calmly standing beside Han Feng and Kulong. He was secretly observing the gate of heaven, feeling joyful inside. He didn't get any of the 9 demon crystals that came from the carcass of the 9-headed sky snake, but seeing all those crystals getting destroyed made him immensely happy. But as he thought of the frightening power which could snatch away the demon crystals from the hands of sky realm warriors like Qi Xiao and Bai Mingshang, he was very startled and thought of prudence. Zhua Qi looked up into the sky. His expression was painful, and he kept murmuring under his breath, Father! Father! One of the demon crystals that exploded came from a level 8 mud dragon. A level 8 demon crystal could sustain a piece of the demon beast's soul. So even if the body is destroyed, there is still a chance for resurrection because of the soul inside the demon crystal. However, the spirit inside the level 8 demon crystal was clearly lifeless and dull. Very obviously, it must have been refined by some mysterious technique, making it just a power source with no ability to think of its own. That level 8 demon crystal of the mud dragon had become a very important part in opening the gate of heaven. Although Zhua Qi was vicious, he still had a deep love and admiration for the mud dragon. One can only imagine the despair he must have felt when seeing the last hope of resurrecting his father getting destroyed. Bai Mingshang, Qi Xiao, and Zhou Zi, he all quietly walked towards the gate of heaven. As they approached the gate of heaven, the more cautious were their steps. Mistress, the 2 giant men next to Xia Xenin, looked at the mysterious pattern in the valley and hesitated. These 2 seemed to know some secrets about the mysterious pattern. Xia Xenin shook her head. She silently gazed at everything in a strange light and looked at the far standing Shi Yan. Shi Yan was also secretly watching everyone, and once he saw Xia Xenin looking towards him, he was dazed for a second, then lightly nodded to Xia Xenin. A complex feeling flickered through Xia Xenin's eyes. She also slowly nodded towards him, but no one knew what thoughts were going through her mind. The gate of heaven has now opened. If you all are really not scared of death, then you may enter now. Xia Xenin didn't move from her place, but saw Qi Xiao and Bai Mingshang standing motionless before the gate. She couldn't resist the temptation to mock them. I'll go. Unexpectedly, Zhua Qi, who was immersed in grief, suddenly roared, I'd like to see what exactly is inside. Then, Zhua Qi's body moved as fast as lightning, storming into the gate of heaven like a moth to a flame, and disappeared into the bright white light. Zhua Qi's shadow quickly disappeared into the gate of heaven. The gate only warped for a second and did not show any other change. It still maintained its bright shine, as if waiting for the entrance of another person. Brother Zhou. Bai Mingshang looked at Zhou Zihi and pondered for a second, then said, What do you think? Zhou Zi, he shook his head and said, We're already at this point. If I return empty-handed, I will regret it for the rest of my life. If you want the riches, you have to take the risks. All right. Bai Mingxiang nodded in agreement. He hesitated for a second, then turned to Bai Mingsu and said, "So you stay outside. In Kuei, Jiushan, you guys take care of So." Pausing, Bai Mingxiang then looked at Muyu Dai and Di Yaolin and furrowed his brows. "What do you guys think?" "I want to go look inside." Muyu Dai knew that the gate of heaven would contain great danger, but she still didn't want to miss this chance of a lifetime. "Okay, you may go in." Bai Mingxiang nodded. "Follow me." Bai Mingxiang then followed after Zhua Qi and entered the gate of heaven. Muyu Dai and Di Yaolin exchanged a look. They both looked determined and followed Bai Mingxiang into the gate of heaven. "Mr. Qi Shao, how about you?" Xia Xian Yen said casually. "Of course I will enter too." Qi Shao smiled. He looked back at Zhuo Shi and Shi Yan and said, "Shao Shi, you stay outside. I will go look inside alone." "Master, I want to go inside it too." Zhuo Shi pouted and said reluctantly, "As a teacher, I'll go take a look at the situation first. If there are no problems, next time I will definitely take you along." Qi Shao scolded her with a straight face, then said to Shi Yan and the rest, "What about the Shi family? Would you send someone to go and take a look too?" "Young master, I'll go." Kulong stood up and said to Shi Yan, "I'll go." Shi Yan's expression was cold. He shouted with a deep voice, as if he didn't care the dangers in the gate of heaven. Deep down, he always had a daredevil factor, and he liked to challenge unknown mysteries. The very reason why he came to this world was because of his exploration of the blue holes. Of course, he wouldn't want to sit out on the exploration of the gate of heaven. "Young master, let Kulong go." Han Feng said anxiously, "Don't worry, I'll go." Shi Yan shook his head and insisted, "I'm very curious as to what really is in the gate of heaven. If I don't go, I will regret it forever." Then, before Han Feng and Kulong could try to persuade him again, he immediately sprinted towards the gate of heaven. "Young master!" Kulong and Han Feng both screamed in fear, and they also ran towards the gate of heaven. By the time when they arrived at the gate, Shi Yan's body just so happened to disappear into the gate. The two exchanged glances and, without further hesitation, leaped into the gate of heaven. "You guys look after Shao Shi." Qi Shao told Wu Yunlian and Chu Ping. Then he also flew out and disappeared into the gate of heaven. In the matter of a few minutes, all the masters in the valley leaped into the gate one after another. Truly, like the saying, people die in pursuit for money like birds die for food. In the Yin Valley, the only ones left were Bai Mingsu, Yin Kuei, and Jiushan on one side, plus Zhuo Shi, Chu Ping, and Wu Yunlian on the other. Then there were also Xia Xian and the two towering giant men. "Mistress, this is a false gate of heaven," one of the giant men whispered. Xia Xian's eyes flickered. She stared at the gate with the same expression. Right now the Sky Realm Masters were all in the gate of heaven, plus Xia Xian, and the two were at a distance from the other two sides, so no one could hear their quiet conversation. "The false gate won't have the real God domain. This is only a small space created by a God Realm Master. It won't contain any unimaginable treasures, but it should contain the relics of the God Realm Master. Miss, why don't you go in? Maybe there's even the martial spirit inheritance of that person." One of the towering men said impatiently, "Don't you all think that somewhere there's an invisible hand that's manipulating this all?" Xia Xian snorted. He already arranged everything on the chessboard, and we're all just chess pieces in his game plan. We are all together, but still could not escape from his control. That old guy's been dead for thousands of years and still won't rest in peace. "Mistress, you're saying—" The Shi family's half of the fragmented map was probably obtained by Shi Yan. That half of the map was definitely together with these only immortal level martial skill, and only warriors with low capabilities would actually go and cultivate it. That guy purposely set the place in the Yin Valley forcing the one who has to cultivate it to defend against the natural yin qi. Once the is cultivated, it would naturally swallow the yin qi here to form the yin pearls. Once the yin pearls form, the objective is clear. If the gate of heaven really had the martial spirit imprint, then only the one with the yin pearls could obtain it. Now, is there even a need for us to go in? Xia Exayan said resentfully. That old guy, he already planned everything completely. He simply won't let anyone sabotage his plans. This time we came for nothing. If Shi Yan obtains the martial spirit imprint of that guy, then he will definitely become one of the god children of the three-god sect. If he could go to the endless sea, the three-god sect would treat him like a treasure. Miss, the three-god sect is very powerful in the endless sea, and they're in opposition with us. If he really does obtain that person's martial spirit imprint, then he will definitely become the star god of the three-god sect in the future. We better take him out now. I know what to do, Xia Exayan Yen said coldly. The two towering men nodded and became silent again. In a place with pitch-black darkness, there came a woman's cold voice. All of you go to the gate of heaven. Catch Muyu Dai and assist the Lord to explore the mysteries of the gate. Yes, mistress. A group of pale-faced warriors from the dark world knelt down on one knee, with blank expressions. Go. The voice in the dark came again. Dozens of warriors of the dark world moved one by one, and soon entered the Yin Valley. Without even looking at the people in the valley, they walked straight into the gate of heaven. The people from the dark world. Baimingsi shouted with a low voice, his expression slightly changed. The dark world should have been guarding on the outside. Why would they suddenly enter into the gate of heaven? As Yin Kuei and Jioshan watched the flow of warriors from the dark world coming in, the look in their eyes became grim. It can't be. We have to go in too, or else Grandpa won't be able to handle it on his own. Baimingsi pondered, and disregarding Yin Kuei and Jioshan's opposition, he also rushed into the gate. When Yin Kuei and Jioshan saw that he went in, they could only follow along without hesitation. Chapter 95, Desperate Fight. Chapter 95, Desperate Fight. There was a huge star river in the sky, which was exactly like the pattern formed in the Yin Valley by the sky snake's blood. In that star river, every star was as big as a mountain, and the distance between the stars was like heaven and earth, hundreds of thousands of meters away. Under the star river were various numerous clouds, floating freely, and which were either formed of fire, yin qi, or poisonous air. Gray sky and gray earth. On the ground lay a huge statue with its back on the ground. The statue was of a muscular, handsome figure, and sculpted to be clothed with only a stone shorts. The heart area of the stone statue was shining with starry light. The starry light was attracting the power in the star river, and similarly to the light from the starry river, was becoming concentrated in the heart of the stone statue. The statue was carved very expertly, such that even the hair and veins were shown in exquisite delicacy. If one looked carefully, one could even see thousands of black spots moving through the veins. On the right palm of the stone statue, a little ant was staring up at the sky with a surprised look. That was Shi Yan. After he arrived here, he was standing on the right palm of the statue with oddly swaying plants all around him. Those plants, which swayed with the wind, were 10 meters high and as thick as a human waist, looking like the statue's hair, although he didn't know that the plants looked like hair from up in the air. In his eyes, the right palm of that statue was 10 times larger than the Godstone Square in Tianyin City. Standing on that palm, Shi Yan looked at the mysterious star river above him and was filled with amazement. He wasn't aware that he was on the palm of statue, nor did he know how huge the statue was. He had lost his sense of direction and was of the assumption that he was on a small hill. Two. The Yin pearls in the Tian K, Shen K, and Yin Du meridians suddenly started spinning, while a mysterious attraction force came from the heart of that stone statue. Shi Yan's body shook suddenly. The heart area which attracted the starlight was calling for the Yin pearls inside Shi Yan, and the Yin pearls spun, as if urging him to go to the heart area. Standing on the palm of the stone statue, Shi Yan looked quite serious, and after a little hesitance, he dashed to the heart area of the statue directly. Meanwhile, the small black men on the stone statue observed for a while and realized the heart area was the most powerful place. Therefore, after being still for a while, those people gathered at the chest of the stone statue. Those people included the warriors from the Dark World, Mu Hui, Muyu Dai, Dialan, and Bai Ming Se. All warriors under the Earth Realm were moving towards the heart area. Under the heels of the stone statue, Bai Ming Shan, Qi Xiao, Zhua, Qi, the Dark Master, Yin Kuei, and Jiushan were suppressed by a huge power. Warriors above Earth Realm were all suppressed under its heels, unable to move even a bit. At that time, the group, including Bai Ming Shan and Qi Xiao, were trying to defend against the power which restrained them. But however hard they tried, they couldn't get rid of that pressure or move an inch. Two. The Yin pearls inside Shi Yan kept spinning, while Shi Yan held his breath and dashed toward the stone statue with a rigid face. Beside Shi Yan, the hairs of the stone statue were swaying like tall trees and blocking his sight. He felt like he was in a jungle instead of the palm of the statue. Not knowing how much time had passed, Shi Yan finally flew from the mountain-like palm to its right leg. Shi Yan's rushing body suddenly stopped as he looked ahead on alert. From a deep hole in front of him, one after another flaming stone men suddenly jumped out. These stone men were 3 meters tall and were wreathed in fire, giving off the smell of the 9-headed sky snake. If one looked down at it from upon the statue, he would find that that deep hole was actually the Yang Qi meridian on its right arm. The 12 flaming stone men seemed to be disgusted by the smell of life. Once Shi Yan approached the hole, they appeared and jumped on him. Taking a deep breath, Shi Yan kept calm to operate his petrification martial spirit, and his skin turned dark brown in a short time. After he operated his petrification martial spirit, Shi Yan triggered by moving his profound qi all over his body. As there was formed, Shi Yan dashed out like a missile. Dang, dang, dang! Among the flaming stone men, Shi Yan turned his fingers into spears and struck the stone men. Which could pierce through an elementary realm warrior, emitted the sound of metal clashing while striking the stone bodies. The power of the fire went into Shi Yan's fingers when he touched the stone men and felt pain in his fingers. No. His face changed. Shi Yan soon realized that it was inefficient when facing the stone men who were not made of flesh. Boom! 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 6 stone men made flaming fists and punched Shi Yan together. His couldn't bear the attacks and fell apart. Under those fists, Shi Yan was driven back in pain. His clothes were on fire. Thanks to his petrification martial spirit, his body was not hurt except for some pain. With a gloomy face, Shi Yan could figure out that every one of the 6 stone men was tougher than a human realm warrior. That was not working. He had to take another shot. As his will changed, Shi Yan's left hand gave out wisps of white smoke. Negative energy was triggered and combined with his profound qi. They flew out together and formed a huge. With his will, they moved swiftly and suddenly fell in the center of the stone men. A strong power of attraction gushed out of the field, making all the stone men to struggle painfully. It worked. Delighted, Shi Yan enhanced the power in the field and focused to twist it. Pa, pa, pa. As the field span, one stone man was shattered into pieces and was thrown out of the field. Shi Yan was a little relieved before his face changed again. However, After leaving the field, the scattered parts of the stone man began to reform together. In merely 3 seconds, it had recombined and jumped at Shi Yan again. It was not killed. Realizing that, Shi Yan's face turned gloomier, and he triggered the field again to change its position. That stone man was wrapped again and shredded to pieces another time. This time, Shi Yan didn't try to kill them, but crossed the field in an instant and continued to dash forward after all the stone men were entangled. Half an hour later, from the deep hole of the stone statue's Jigo meridian, one after another Yin Sha danced out. Yin Sha was produced by warriors' spirits, which absorbed Yin Qi. It was a dead thing, but could use part of the warrior's martial spirit. It was aggressive and in thirst of more spirits. Those Yin Sha waved their claws and flew toward Shi Yan from the deep hole. After a glance at the Yin Sha, Shi Yan's face turned cold. Inside the Yin pearl, wisps of Yin power pervaded and triggered the 3 Yin swirls to spin, and a strong power of attraction broke out. Those Yin Sha suddenly showed fear and escaped to the deep hole. You think you can escape? Shi Yan smiled coldly, and the Yin swirls span even faster. The Yin Sha struggled hard while being pulled by Shi Yan's Yin swirls, but still forced toward Shi Yan little by little. The more they approached Shi Yan, the more they were influenced by the Yin swirl. All of a sudden, one Yin Sha stopped struggling and turned into Yin Qi and went inside Shi Yan's chest. The Yin Sha dissolved in the Yin swirls and turned into pure energy, which was attached to the center of the Yin swirls. The rest of the Yin Sha struggled in fear, but couldn't get escape the Yin swirls. They were pulled in and turned into Yin Qi inside of it. Quickly, all the Yin Sha were absorbed and Shi Yan continued advancing. At the same time, the same thing was happening at every corner of the stone statue. Baiming Su Mu Yu Dai, Dialin, Mu Hui, and warriors from the Dark World also met danger when they headed for the heart. They were all trapped by the flaming stone men, Yin Sha, poisonous demons, and mud dragons which came from the meridians of the stone statue. Shi Yan continued to rush forward. On his way, he came across more flaming stone men and Yin Sha, which were taken care of by the same Yins, and then he came to the right elbow slowly. Shi Yan stopped again. Ahead of him were 5 warriors from the Dark World, who all were around the first or second sky of the human realm. They had been separated from the others by the gate of heaven when they entering, and now all of them were heading for the heart, but smelled like scorched flesh. The 5 warriors from the Dark World also spotted Shi Yan. They turned back, glanced at Shi Yan, and came to an agreement silently. With cold eyes, they walked towards Shi Yan slowly. Warriors from the Dark World. Shi Yan's eyes were like torches as he spotted the sign of the Dark World on the bare shoulder of one warrior. Kill! That guy yelled when the rest separated to encircle Shi Yan in an arc. You are seeking for death. With a cold face, Shi Yan's eyes showed a bloodthirst. After a shout, he dashed out like a sharp sword. Dash. You're tuning in to the Thunder Spear YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.